Chapter 2260. Master. The final deadline was approaching. Everybody was excited and watching Lin Feng enthusiastically. A fighting phantom is going to appear. There were mountains of corpses at the foot of Lin Feng's deployment spell. He had killed so many people. After making a public announcement, he had only been to 2 places. He hadn't been traveling around constantly. His death intent is terrifying. During these 3 months, not only didn't he get injured, but he also became stronger, thought Bai Yu, staring at Lin Feng's eyes. During those 3 months, she had seen Lin Feng change. He had become even more terrifying. These days, great imperial beasts just had to glance at Lin Feng's eyes, and they died. 1 second, and he could kill them. His fighting abilities were terrifying. She had never seen anything like that in her life. More beasts jumped into his deployment spells. People sighed, how brave. Some terrifying beasts also came from other places. But in all, fewer and fewer people dared go and attack Lin Feng. Many beasts already considered him a future fighting phantom. But the beasts who were brave enough to go and try all ended up dead. After a short time, they just became corpses among the others. Many beasts were thinking that the corpses on the ground represented an almost endless source of wealth too. During the last 2 days, nobody attacked, and the 3-month deadline arrived. Some gigantic silhouettes appeared in the sky. They looked like gods. Minister Rock. Many beasts were stupefied when they saw Minister Rock. Minister Jiao. The people looked at the ministers with respect and admiration. Minister Jiao was from another territory. All the ministers from all the territories had arrived at that moment. They all looked at Lin Feng. They had watched his battles. It was the first time someone managed to become a fighting phantom, with only the strength of the Huang Qi layer. It was incredible. They would always remember such an accomplishment. Kacha! The mirror which shone down on Lin Feng broke apart, startling everyone. It meant that the 3-month period was over. Lin Feng was now officially a fighting phantom. A new fighting phantom. Everybody was shaking. In the sky, yet another silhouette appeared. That person descended from the sky. He had no qi, and looked ordinary. On the ground, nobody would have paid attention to him. However, everybody understood that this person had regained a natural state. Leader. The ministers all bowed. The crowd shuddered with fear. The master was there. Haha. Congratulations. Finally, another fighting phantom after me, said that person, laughing loudly. Oh, so the master was the last person who became a fighting phantom? Now he's a peerless cultivator? I don't know what his cultivation level is, but he's terrifying anyway. They looked at Lin Feng. Would Lin Feng become a peerless cultivator too? Follow me, said the leader, smiling at Lin Feng. Then, he looked at all the beasts and said, since the fighting phantom has already appeared, he'll probably choose protectors in the following month. The ministers are in charge of that. Yes, master, said the ministers in unison, looking at the leader and Lin Feng. Let's go. After that, some strength surrounded Lin Feng, and they disappeared. Bai Yu and the others looked stunned and hopeless. He was gone. He had become a fighting phantom. He was going to become a terrifying cultivator someday. Lin Feng followed the leader. He looked like a 40-some-year-old man. But he was probably extremely old. He looked absolutely ordinary as well. Master, where are we going? Asked Lin Feng. Your temporary residence, said the leader, smiling. They traveled a great distance. They even crossed some doors. Finally, they arrived in an ordinary city. There were beasts and humans coexisting peacefully. Their cultivation levels were extraordinarily low. Lin Feng didn't understand. When the leader saw Lin Feng's face, he said, Don't call me master. Call me Uncle Wang. All right, Uncle Wang. But where are we? A small city and king of the 10,000 beasts world. I've been living here recently. It's peaceful. The leader and Lin Feng took a walk down the main street. Someone smiled and asked, Teacher Wang, who's that little boy? Are you trying to help him find a woman? Woman. Lin Feng's face stiffened. Hee hee. The leader smiled fatuously. On the way, many people called out to him. In front of them, a beautiful woman appeared and looked at the leader. She smiled and said, Dad, you're back. Yes, I'm back. The leader grinned. The woman looked at Lin Feng and followed them as they entered a forge. Dad, we've acquired many goods. I was waiting for you to make weapons. said the young woman happily. The leader smiled and replied, "Let's do it." Lin Feng looked at them strangely. They took up hammers and started forging weapons. The young woman looked at Lin Feng, smiled and asked, "Who are you?" Lin Feng was surprised. The leader just smiled, so Lin Feng replied, "I'm Uncle Wang's friend, I'm from abroad. I'm here as a tourist." Lin Feng asked her, "You're Uncle Wang's daughter? Don't we look similar?" laughed the woman. "How old are you?" asked Lin Feng. 19, replied the young woman. Lin Feng remained silent. He looked at the leader's wife. She was also a beautiful woman. He had a beautiful wife and a talented daughter. Lin Feng spent some days there. The leader had an ordinary life there. Nobody knew he was a leader. Nobody knew he was a terrifying cultivator. He was just an ordinary blacksmith there. But Lin Feng was astonished and speechless. This person had gone through hardships in life? Lin Feng had no doubts about that. Maybe the leader had lived there for dozens of years. Well, at least 19 years, because his daughter was 19 years old. Lin Feng couldn't help but wonder if other strong cultivators had such lives at some point. After many lives and reincarnations, they ended up with many families, many descendants. Lin Feng and the leader were in a backyard sitting in chairs. The leader smiled and asked, "How do you feel?" "Surprised," replied Lin Feng. "Normal. You're young. You can't imagine what it feels like to have all sort of lives. Only after having had many lives, it feels like you've lived once. It's good for you to be here. Many people like me have ordinary lives. Even if you pass next to them, you won't know who they really are." Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, next to people like the leader, it was impossible to know they were extremely strong. In the continent of the 9 clouds, there had been many peerless cultivators. Had they died? Of course they hadn't, but where were they? Did they have very ordinary lives in villages and small cities? You've just become a fighting phantom. Many people will be watching you. Will you get used to it? Asked the leader. Lin Feng shook his head. He wasn't interested in being a fighting phantom, but change was always something special. Polishing, cleaning, that makes you change, that makes you grow up, laughed the leader. Lin Feng understood what he meant. He wasn't trying to teach him how to become stronger. "I decided to become a fighting phantom, just so I could leave the king of the 10,000 beasts territory. Now I'm thinking after leaving, shouldn't I have a normal life for some time too?" Lin Feng smiled. The leader nodded. "No rush. Don't be impatient. First, your protectors will be chosen. After that, you can leave. You can also take them with you." "Thank you very much, Uncle Wang," said Lin Feng politely. "No need. The king of the 10,000 beasts asked me to take care of you. He attached great importance to you," replied the leader easily. "If someday we become extremely strong, you'll definitely be with us." Chapter 2261. Leaving the territory, Lin Feng smiled casually and gazed into the distance. He had already traveled around the world. However, he couldn't be like the leader and live like an ordinary person, because people who stood at the top already had everything they wanted in life. There was no risk they would fall anymore, almost. Among the strong cultivators who stood at the top, some people had joined shrines and had incredible privileges. Some people were invited all over the world, such as Shiju Lao Xian, and some people stood aloof from worldly strife. For them, cultivation was about cultivating one's mind and body, but it was more maintenance work at their level. Of course, some people decided to contribute to society even more by writing books for others, such as the strong cultivators who had written the books in the shrines. Other extremely strong cultivators had written about the 8 distresses to help people. It mainly depended on their lives. Lin Feng spent some peaceful days on the leader's side, living like an ordinary human being. Finally, the leader took Lin Feng away and they left. "Father, come back soon," said the leader's daughter. He waved at his daughter and smiled. "Don't worry, I'll come back soon. Take care of your mother." "All right," smiled the young woman. Then, Lin Feng and the leader slowly disappeared from their field of vision. People in the king of the 10,000 beasts world were still amazed at the existence of a new fighting phantom. The ministers announced publicly that they would be looking for fighting phantom protectors. All the ministers were involved. People who wanted to become fighting phantom protectors could be recruited at all levels among great imperial and Tian level beasts. Many people wanted to become fighting phantom protectors, and some of them were extremely strong. They cared about the future and had long-term plans. 36 fighting phantom protectors were chosen and gathered in front of the leader's palace, waiting for the leader to come back. Some beasts who had lived for a very, very long time looked excited. They remembered back when the leader had become a fighting phantom. They had heard that many of his protectors had a much higher cultivation level than him. Many of those people were already ministers and were extremely strong, but the leader had already become much stronger than them. The new fighting phantom was even more special because he only had the strength of the Huangqi layer, but he was already extremely strong. Many people who wanted to become protectors actually had much better fighting abilities than him, but they didn't think about too much. They knew it was only temporary. They were convinced that 1,000, or even just 100 years later, he'd be much, much stronger than them. Two people arrived slowly. People raised their heads and saw the leader and Lin Feng had returned. Where had the leader taken Lin Feng? These are the fighting phantom protectors who have been chosen for you. You can keep some of them only, or all of them as you wish, said the leader to Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced over the crowd. The beasts there all looked terrifying and had a terrifying qi. They were among the strongest people of the king of the 10,000 beasts territory. Fighting phantoms had an incredibly high social status because they were sure to become leaders someday. I know that many of you are ambitious and proud. However, I need people who will listen to my orders. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Now you can choose, you stay or you leave as you wish, said Lin Feng indifferently. He didn't need to have a burden. If he had an extremely strong cultivator on his side, but that cultivator didn't listen to him, then that would just be a burden. Such cultivators were useless. On the ground, many beasts' eyes glittered. They were wondering, what would happen if someday Lin Feng asked them to do something they weren't willing to do? Would they be willing to serve him? I give up, said a beast. Stepping back, he bowed before the leader and left. Me too. Very quickly, people left one after another. Just over 20 beasts were left. They all looked determined. You leave now, said Lin Feng, pointing at a few beasts. They all looked stupefied. Lin Feng didn't want them. How humiliating. However, they didn't know that Lin Feng had carefully observed their faces and had seen that they weren't as determined as they thought. Only 18 beasts were now left. Lin Feng was surprised because apart from Dinua, all the other beasts who had come to that world with him were there. 18 beasts, 6 celestial imperial beasts, qi filling the air around them. Those celestial imperial beasts were among the best in the territory. Master, last time, the king of the 10,000 beasts told us that fighting phantoms could leave the territory. But can fighting phantom protectors leave the territories? Asked Lin Feng. Of course, they're your protectors. And you have the privilege of being able to leave. You can keep them with you. Great, I will take them with me, said Lin Feng calmly. So many years had passed. Things had changed in the continent of the 9 clouds. With a personal army he'd be much safer. Lin Feng left the king of the 10,000 beasts territory with his protectors. When he arrived in the 8 great imperial animal cities, some people saw Bai Yu and the others, and their hearts started beating faster. Bai Yu, Qinghai's rock, and the others were following Lin Feng? What was going on? However, Lin Feng didn't stop there. He left that place too. They arrived in Long Night City. The sword sect appeared in front of them. Very quickly, a group of strong cultivators appeared outside, including several celestial emperors. When Jiuyu's ministry learned about it, some of their cultivators also came to watch. When the strong cultivators arrived and saw Lin Feng, they were stunned. Those beasts' qi were dreadful. Die, said Lin Feng. A terrifying amount of bestial qi filled the air. The beasts rose up into the air and blotted out the sky. Horrible screams arose as blood splashed and gushed all around. When the crowd saw that, they were terrified. Where were these beasts from? Great Emperor Bai's daughter. Qinghai's rock. Some strong cultivators of Jiuyu's ministry recognized some beasts, frowning when they saw them. Some noble beasts from the great imperial city had surprisingly come here. Qing Er was stupefied. What was going on? Lin Feng suddenly looked over at the people from Jiu Yu's ministry, including the celestial master of the 7 knights. The previous time he had seen him, he remembered now. That person had also forced him into hell. He had noticed Lin Feng was extremely strong back then, even though Lin Feng was a nobody. Kill him, ordered Lin Feng, calmly pointing at the celestial master of the 7 knights. Everybody was astonished. He wanted to kill a strong cultivator from Jiu Yu's ministry? He was the celestial master of the 7 knights. The beasts didn't care though. They threw themselves at the celestial master of the 7 knights. The strong cultivators of Jiu Yu's ministry shouted explosively. Insolent. This is Long Night City. Great imperial beasts can't afford to act insolently here. When that great emperor said that, some claws landed on his head and tore him apart. He didn't even have time to react before he collapsed headless. Jiu Yu's ministry is nothing in comparison to the king of the 10,000 beasts world. Jiu Yu's ministry is a futile and trivial place. We can easily destroy you, said a beast rudely. Many strong cultivators shuddered with fear. These beasts were under the orders of the legendary king of the 10,000 beasts. The king of the 10,000 beasts really existed? But in any case, these beasts were terrifying. That was a fact. Why do you want to kill me? Asked the celestial master of the 7 knights, staring at Lin Feng. He sounded cold and bitter. A few celestial imperial beasts had surrounded him. He was stuck. Do you remember back in the small world? In Jiu Yu? Back then, you forced a young man to jump into the black water, replied Lin Feng flatly. The celestial master of the 7 knights frowned. He looked pensive for a few seconds, and then he remembered. His face changed drastically. Impossible, who are you? I am that young man, said Lin Feng, releasing death intent. The celestial master of the 7 knights' face completely changed. The terrifying beasts around him were fighting phantom protectors. Even the celestial master of the 7 knights couldn't do much against celestial imperial beasts. All he could do was put up a last-ditch struggle. Until the moment he died, he never thought he'd feel so humiliated in life. This had happened because a long time before, he had bullied a young man. A terrifying qi filled the air. In the distance, some strong cultivators from Jiu Yu's ministry arrived. They were furious. Their qi rolled out and they shouted, "Who dares act that arrogantly and kill people from Jiu Yu's ministry? If you don't want Jiu Yu's ministry to be wiped off the map, piss off," retorted a celestial imperial beast, coldly staring at those people. The one who had just talked pulled a long face and asked, "You're from the Great Imperial City?" "Great Imperial City? I used to be, a very long time ago," said the celestial imperial beast coldly. Then he said, "Piss off now. You don't want to offend the king of the 10,000 beasts." That strong cultivator grimaced. The king of the 10,000 beasts? Jiu Yu's ministry had a high position in the region. They had heard about the king of the 10,000 beasts. And if these beasts really came from the king of the 10,000 beasts territory, indeed, Jiu Yu's ministry couldn't afford to offend them. "Let's go," Lin Feng said calmly at that moment. He didn't want to stay there. His forces all left, and the strong cultivators of the sword sect and Jiu Yu's ministry didn't dare do anything but glare helplessly after them. Chapter 2262. How long did that dream last? In the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, the shrines had incredible privileges. Their headquarters were gigantic pyramids, which towered over that gigantic territory. However, the shrines hadn't been that relaxed for the last few years. Chu Chunqiu was still in Ganji's time. He had already become extremely strong. A short time before, he had defeated a celestial imperial beast. His fighting abilities were shocking. He was progressing way too fast, and the supreme animal world also supported him a lot. After the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, he had almost immediately become a great emperor. Now a dozen years had passed, and he was already a celestial emperor. That kind of speed was astonishing and breathtaking. The shrines felt pressured. Was Chu Chunqiu that guy? All the shrines paid attention to Chu Chunqiu. Everybody in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds paid attention to him. Actually, back then, during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, many people had paid attention to him, and a few others. However, after the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, many people had stopped paying attention to the others, especially since many of them had left the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Of course, in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, there were many strong cultivators. Many of them paid attention to Chu Chun Chiu, as he was a core disciple in a shrine. Core disciples, no matter which shrine they belonged to, were extremely strong. There were also some other influential groups, many of them very strong cultivators. Many of them were at the top of the Huang Qi layer already. Everybody was becoming stronger. Even the strongest cultivators of the continent of the 9 clouds were becoming stronger, including the holy city. People of the same generations continued competing. Such things influenced everybody, and every faction. However, Lin Feng didn't care about those things. At that moment, he was in purple clouds, in a cave situated in a place where there weren't many people. He was seated cross-legged practicing cultivation. The fighting phantom protectors were with him. He was visualizing various things. There was a scene with one Lin Feng. He was at the very top of a mountain, watching the sun rise and set. He was living like a hermit. Another scene was Lin Feng traveling around the world. Another scene was Lin Feng living in a small village and hunting with other villagers. He met a woman he liked, and they got married. He didn't disappoint her, even though he felt lonely in the end because his mood and thoughts changed with time as he grew older. There were many other scenes. Lin Feng's clones, the 3 live scriptures. Lin Feng could make as many ordinary clones as he wanted. Those clones could have ordinary lives. Lin Feng was wondering whether the 3 lives great emperor was doing that too, whether he had many clones everywhere in the world. The original Lin Feng's hair was very long, and his beard was long too. He started looking more mature. However, he didn't know that, he just continued meditating. Apart from purple clouds, he was also in many other places in the continent, many other places in small worlds, many places in his own small world. Gradually, it was as if one brain wasn't enough anymore. It was like a dream, as if all those lives had been dreams. One day, Lin Feng went into a dream. He was in a restaurant, working as a servant. Every day, he chatted with guests and heard them talk about interesting stories in the continent. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Ordinary days like that were also pleasant. However, not every dream was great. Lin Feng was in another dream, and there he was a hunter in a village, and had gotten married with a beautiful woman from the village as well. Their relationship was harmonious. However, one day, a group of brigands arrived and attacked them. They killed everyone. Lin Feng was furious. He wished he could have gone there himself with his real body to kill them. Lin Feng's real body was asleep, but he was still furious. However, he also managed to calm down. Millions of clones, millions of lives, could he remain calm? Wasn't he lonely actually? Could he just let nature take its course? He gradually calmed down when thinking about that. After that, in other dreams, he ended up in many other similar situations. His mood, his perceptions, his vision were changing. Everything was changing everywhere. The same thing happened in his spirit's world. It was becoming bigger and bigger. It was almost a perfect small world. There were all sorts of qi, all sorts of energies, but at the same time, that world corresponded to Lin Feng's vision, and it was improving quickly. Lin Feng's real body was asleep. An ancient tree appeared indistinctly around him. Terrifying cosmic energies surrounded his body. They were intense, and contained the strength of the 10,000 things of creation around Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't move. He was sleeping. In his mind, golden lights intertwined. His godly awareness started communicating with the earth and sky. Lin Feng dreamed about many things. Apart from dreaming of millions of lives, he also dreamt about cultivation. He dreamt about the world of the living imprints attacks. In his dream, he understood those attacks even better. One attack, and it seemed that the earth and sky could collapse. He also dreamed about his spirit, about many other spirits. And finally, he dreamt of his most powerful spirit, the celestial book spirit. All the pages looked dazzling and beautiful. In that dream, he studied a lot. Time passed in the outside world, but Lin Feng forgot about time. The imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. The continent of the 9 clouds. everything changed. In the Snow Clan, a beautiful silhouette appeared on a snowy field. Her chi looked extraordinary. She was standing at the top of a mountain, gazing into the distance. She was thinking about him, missing him. Finally, tears appeared in her eyes. Her lips twitched and she said, "I've been a lone fox for 1,000 years. I've been lonely for 1,000 years. I love you unconditionally. You passed the imperial examinations. I want to dance for you again. May I dance for you? May I dance for you?" She was singing. Her voice was beautiful. She started dancing, looking extremely beautiful as she danced with the snow. Could he see her dance though? Snowflakes floated around her. She continued chanting. In the distance was a snowy tree. A young man was standing there. He was wearing armor, but tears appeared in his eyes. He raised his head, his eyes were red. He took a deep breath and swore, "Someday, I will do my best so that nobody forces my parents to live apart. If anyone stops me, rivers of blood will flow, even if those people are from the Snow Clan." On that day, that young man was 18 years old. The 20-year period was imminent. On that day, Lin Feng was dreaming. Chapter 2263. Waking Up. Destruction of the Sky. Lin Feng didn't know how much time he had spent in the cave. His hair and beard were really long, and he was covered with dust. He looked much more mature. His golden godly awareness palace was dazzling and lofty. In his dream, he had managed to create the real godly awareness palace. It had become a great imperial godly awareness palace. His physical strength had been improved by the heavenly grace ancient tree. During these years, he had improved in every aspect. Without the heavenly grace ancient tree, he would have needed many more years to become that strong. His celestial book spirit was dazzling. He absorbed all the spirits he had ever absorbed and transformed them into his own strength. His spirit and his spirit's world were becoming better and better. Lin Feng didn't need to control it anymore. It was an independent world. During these years, his millions of clones had developed that world. The Sky Palace. What's the date tonight? Remembered Lin Feng. He came back to his senses. My Tao is going to be complete, said Lin Feng without paying attention, as if he didn't know what was going on. Lin Feng's celestial book spirit trembled. Dark lightning filled the air around him, as if his spirit were about to explode. Dark lightning started bombarding him. It looked like Judgment Day around him. Finally, his celestial book exploded and turned into a world, and only that world was left. Lin Feng didn't look perturbed. His spirit's world was trembling. People inside raised their heads and saw terrifying dark lightning across the sky. Tang Yu was in Shuiyu, and when she saw the dark thunders, she looked terrified. Luckily, those were ancient forbidden lightnings, so they weren't destructive. It was just qi contained in that world. Otherwise, such a powerful qi could have destroyed that world if it had been part of an attack. At the same time, in the outside world of purple clouds, the sky started breaking. Many people raised their heads and started trembling. The sky was breaking in purple clouds. There was no sky anymore in purple clouds. What kind of strength had provoked that? In a distant mountain, an old man was seated in a chair and suddenly stood up. He was bent and soon started shaking, and then rose into the air like a spiritual being. Am I dreaming? His son was speechless. The sky was broken. His father had risen up into the air. What was going on? Were heaven and earth on the verge of collapse? The old man gazed into the distance and saw pitch-black forbidden lights. He realized something, and his face changed drastically. The prophecy, the legends, in the old days, it's happening, whispered the old man. He suddenly disappeared from where he was. He wanted to see what was going to happen. Throughout purple clouds, many hidden strong cultivators raised their heads, all thinking the same thought. The sky was going to change. In the fire shrine, someone who protected the entrance trembled. His face paled. He was staring at the sky, where forbidden lights were flashing in purple clouds, and the sky was broken. Something big is going to happen, oh no. He started running and disappeared. After a short time, many people reappeared at his post. Everybody looked at purple clouds. They all grimaced, including the leader of the fire shrine. Phew, we've been fooled, whispered the leader of the fire shrine. Then he said, go to purple clouds. If you find the one who attracted the forbidden energy, Kill him. Do all you can to find out who among the top 10 cultivators of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds went to purple clouds. Yes, sir. Everybody nodded. Some people headed to purple clouds, some people asked around, some people went to other shrines. At the same time, the other shrines also realized what was going on. In the Fortune Shrine, the diviner was up in the starlit sky. He could see the forbidden lightning and smiled. He wouldn't have thought that the forbidden lightning would cause such damage to lower-class worlds. Next to him were a few people, including the leader of the Fortune Shrine. He said to the diviner telepathically, "Go and tell him to hide. He can't appear." "I understand," the diviner nodded. He left immediately. He went to find Lin Feng's clone, who was in the archive room. "From now on, the shrines are all on alert," said the leader of the Fortune Shrine calmly. Everybody around nodded. Actually, most of them were uninformed, completely in the dark. They didn't know about the Destiny Wheel, and they didn't know about Lin Feng. Lin Feng had the impression he had been dreaming for 1,000 years. He slowly opened his eyes. Even though he had dreamt, everything had felt so real. Obviously, he knew what had happened. He also knew that his Tao was going to be unlimited soon. There would be no restrictions anymore. However, the last step would be gigantic. He stood up and looked at himself, smiling wryly. Sword energy filled the air, and cut his hair and shaved his beard. Fire and water appeared around him. Hot water cleaned his body. He looked normal and clean once again. But very quickly he also changed his face. The diviner had warned him that nobody could know he was in purple clouds. Luckily, only the celestial master of the 7 knights knew about him. But he was dead already. The others didn't know who he was. And the king of the 10,000 beasts territory was a forbidden area. The lights of the Heavenly Grace ancient tree gradually disappeared. Lin Feng smiled. He would bring the Heavenly Grace ancient tree back to Godlywood Valley at some point. It had helped him a lot already. But what is my cultivation level? What is that mysterious Tao? Thought Lin Feng. He finally understood what a forbidden body, without a cultivation level meant. Actually, he just had different levels from other people. Lin Feng walked out of the cave in which he had spent a few years. Behind him, the cave exploded and rumbling sounds spread out as the mountain collapsed. He didn't leave a single thread of chi inside. He headed back to purple clouds. The sky had already reappeared here. However, many people were still shocked about what had happened. Some terrifyingly strong cultivators had come, and were looking for something. People were really scared. The outsiders had been looking for someone for half a year already. Those days, Lin Feng spent some time in a small city. He went to a small restaurant there and chatted and drank alcohol with other guests. When the restaurant closed, he went back to the village, watching the sunset above the mountain. He had an ordinary, peaceful, and tranquil life there. Time passed. Many people in the shrines were furious. But because nobody found him, the shrines didn't start fighting. All the shrines were looking for the top 10 cultivators of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, with orders to kill them if anyone saw them. This time, someone who had a forbidden body was in the world, and he had to be killed, no matter what. The situation was different from 1,000 years before. Chapter 2264. Old friend. Many people were walking along an ancient road. The city was packed. Now and then, one could hear a drunk young man singing. He looked natural and unrestrained. He was with 4 beautiful women. They were singing with him. Little Yu, now Cheong Sheng must be an adult already. How strong do you think he is? Asked Lin Feng, smiling sadly. He missed his son. How could I know? We haven't seen him for such a long time. I wish we could go and see him, said Tang Yu with a smile. Yes, we will, said Lin Feng, smiling and nodding. He looked at Qiu Yuxian and Lu Fei and smiled. Yuxian, Fei, should we have children together too? The 2 women blushed and rolled their eyes. The other one, a beautiful woman too, smiled and giggled. You're right, Sister Yuxian and Sister Fei should have children too. You little indecent girl, Lu Fei said to Xiaoya. I'm still a little girl? Xiaoya stuck out her tongue. Yes, you're not a kid anymore, you should find a husband, Lin Feng smiled. They kept laughing. Lin Feng took out a bottle of alcohol and downed it. His blood and qi boiled. and he took a deep breath. So many years had passed. How was everyone? They weren't like him. They probably weren't stuck at the same cultivation level. They were probably all great emperors already, especially those who had king-type bodies. Jun Moshi and Lang Yi had probably become extremely strong. Their fighting abilities had probably greatly increased. Time passed, and even though Lin Feng was only 30 to 40 years old, he already had the impression he had lived many lives. That was natural, though. In the last years, many things had passed. Lin Feng had the impression life became more and more dreamlike as time passed. He had experienced the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives, and then he had dreamt. The Sky Palace, what's the date tonight? Their group continued walking in the city. They walked a lot, crossing the continent, and finally, they arrived in dark clouds. They arrived near a vast stretch of water, where some people played the zither. Lin Feng listened and smiled. It looked like a painting, a beautiful painting. Some beautiful women were dancing. Many young geniuses were seated cross-legged, drinking and listening to the music. That music is beautiful. The vast celestial ancient city is the only place where you can see such a scene, proclaimed a young man. He was out on a small boat. Many people looked at him with admiration. He was the Prince of Sadness. The Prince of Sadness made women sad. He was extremely strong. He had good relations with the women of the Moon Palace. And he was complimenting the Moon Palace by saying such things. Prince of Sadness, you're flattering us, said a beautiful woman playing the zither. She bowed in front of him. Miss Luoyi, you're too humble. With your abilities you could join the Moon Palace. You have a perfect figure and incredible artistic abilities. Why don't you become a celestial woman of the Moon Palace? I would recommend you, smiled the Prince of Sadness. Many men were in love with the celestial women of the Prince of Sadness. Luoyi looked excited. She had heard that the Moon Palace had many incredible skills and techniques. How could a beautiful woman fall into that decadence? Interrupted Lin Feng at that moment. Many people looked over at him. How audacious, how arrogant. He was humiliating the Moon Palace. The Moon Palace was like many ancient holy clans. Nobody could offend or criticize them. Besides, everybody admired the Moon Palace. They had existed for a very long time, and many people thought well of them. The Prince of Sadness looked at Lin Feng. He smiled and asked calmly, "Who are you, Your Excellency?" "A traveler," replied Lin Feng calmly. He recognized the Prince of Sadness, but the Prince of Sadness didn't recognize him. "Since you're a traveler, why do you talk nonsense? Why don't you keep your mouth shut?" asked the Prince of Sadness with a carefree smile. Everybody understood that the Prince of Sadness loved the Moon Palace. He was elegant and unrestrained, and when people were disrespectful, he immediately threatened them. "I don't know," replied Lin Feng. He turned around and looked back at the Prince of Sadness. The Prince of Sadness was talented and outstanding. Back then, he was already famous in the vast celestial ancient city. Many people didn't know how strong he was. He was a great emperor now, and he had broken through to the Di-Chi layer a long time ago. The Prince of Sadness looked at Lin Feng calmly. He smiled indifferently yet coldly. Lin Feng looked apathetic. He waved his hand and arrows of sadness appeared. The atmosphere became sad and sorrowful. Prince of Sadness, arrows of sadness. An arrow shot towards Lin Feng. They were some distance from one another, but the arrow moved so fast. It was like they were right next to one another. Lin Feng raised his hand. Sword strength emerged from his fingers, and the arrow broke instantly. At the same time, Lin Feng walked out above the lake, looking confident and at ease. "Your Excellency, your dissimulation technique is incredible. We can't even see your cultivation level," said the Prince of Sadness flatly. A melody of death spread through the air. The water of the lake began to churn. Sharp swords hurtled towards Lin Feng. Beasts roared and people's souls shook. Many arrows also whistled towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng continued walking forwards and destroyed all of the Prince of Sadness attacks. The prince was astonished. "Back in the day, I was wondering why the chessboard was in the Prince of Sadness mansion house. Now, I think that you're a member of the Moon Palace, and that you've studied the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures," said Lin Feng calmly. He had noticed the Prince of Sadness' insane attacks contained all sorts of evolved and modified strengths. The prince's face changed drastically. He was staring at Lin Feng as he shouted extremely loudly. Who are you? Prince of Sadness, you will never be sad, or make people sad again, said Lin Feng calmly. A terrifying death strength penetrated into the prince's body, and his face turned gray. He released as much life chi as he could, terrified and staring at Lin Feng. Who was this extremely strong cultivator? When had he offended him? Back then in the vast celestial ancient city, you were the one who tried to kill me using attacks which had been modified with the celestial evolution holy scriptures. I think I'm right, said Lin Feng. The Prince of Sadness gaped. He was staring at Lin Feng, the first cultivator of the continent of the 9 clouds. His mouth was wide open, he wanted to say something, but he had no time. Death intent was corroding his life, and he couldn't resist. After a few seconds he softly collapsed in the small boat. Everybody around was astonished. The Prince of Sadness had just died? Like that? In a few seconds? When they turned around, they noticed that the murderer was already walking away, as if killing the Prince of Sadness had just been a trivial thing. Who is he? Wondered everyone. Their hearts were pounding. Luo Yi looked desperate. The Prince of Sadness had just died because of what they had just said? The crowd was looking at the corpse in the small boat. They had the impression that they were dreaming. The Prince of Sadness had been killed in the blink of an eye. They didn't understand how or why. Outside of the animal world, Lin Feng was standing in the sky, waiting calmly. After a short time, a great imperial beast came out and looked at Lin Feng coldly. Who are you, Your Excellency? What do you want? Lin Feng looked at him and sighed. He had to force his way into the animal world. He instantly disappeared. Where are you going? Demanded the great imperial beast. His face stiffened. However, Lin Feng had turned into a beam of light and disappeared. He couldn't stop him anymore. He charged back into the animal world and shouted furiously, If you dare invade the animal world, you'll die. Lin Feng headed to the mountain peak he remembered. He landed in front of a thatched hut, where someone was seated cross-legged, practicing cultivation. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards and smiled. At that moment, the person opened their eyes and frowned. A terrifying strength moved towards Lin Feng. At the same time, someone shouted furiously in the distance. Many beasts hurried over there. Master, it's me, Lin Feng, said Lin Feng to the person telepathically. That man's eyes twinkled and he shouted to the crowd. Everybody go back. The beasts were stunned. They looked at Lin Feng sourly, but turned around and left. Lin Feng walked over to the man and sat down cross-legged. He took out some bottles of alcohol and gave one to the man. Master, why are you looking at me like that? Your disguise has reached the acme of perfection, replied the leader of the animal world. I really wonder if you're really Lin Feng. Lin Feng laughed. He waved his hands and looked normal again. He raised his glass. Both of them laughed and Lin Feng said, After the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, the fortune shrine gave me an illusion robe. I can change my face and my chi too. It's normal that you can't recognize me. Very good. The man nodded. The fortune shrine was indeed thoughtful. Back then, Lin Feng was young, and he didn't draw people's attention too much. But these days, everything had changed, and the fortune shrine had to protect him. Lin Feng, you changed, sighed the old man. Lin Feng had changed in front of him. He didn't look at the old man with admiration and respect anymore. He looked at him in a comradely way, like an old friend he hadn't seen for a long time. Lin Feng laughed. He had gone through so much. He had met the leader of the king of the 10,000 beasts world, and had learned a lot then and afterwards. Chapter 2265. Great Army. Lin Feng still remembered everything the old man had done for him, and he was still touched when thinking about it. Without the old man of the animal world, Saint Shiju Lao Xian would have never helped Lin Feng in the holy city when the 4 ancient holy clans had encircled him, and later in Qi Tian Holy Town. He was still alive partly thanks to the old man. However, at the top of the Huangqi layer, many people had a countless number of friends, and people willing to help them. Master, said Lin Feng after remaining silent for a few seconds. He raised his glass, they toasted and downed their glasses, and Lin Feng asked, Master, how is Qing Feng doing? She's in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. She went back to her clan. I don't know how she is now, said the old man. Lin Feng's eyes glittered and he said, back then, during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, there was a woman called Jing. Was she really Qing Feng's sister? Jing. The old man raised his head and looked at Lin Feng. She controls phoenix strength. She's extremely strong. She has a phoenix necklace with imprints inside. I see. You must be right. She must be Qing Feng's sister. However, they have the same mother and different fathers, said the old man. Lin Feng was a bit surprised. Same mother, different fathers? It was usually the other way around if they were half-sisters. I'll tell you the truth. I'm Qing Feng's biological father. And I'm not from the vast celestial ancient city. I was born in the supreme animal world, said the old man with some reluctance. Lin Feng was startled. This old man came from the supreme animal world? Qing Feng's mother is a woman from the Void Phoenix clan in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. The Void Phoenix clan's members have real and genuine phoenix blood. They are very strong in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Qing Feng is my only daughter. In the supreme animal world, I am not considered as a very strong cultivator. Therefore I was expelled and left there. I will never be able to go back to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. If Qing Feng's mother hadn't protected me, I would have died already, said the old man slowly. Lin Feng was astonished. Such a sad story. Jing and Qing Feng have the same mother, but different fathers. Why did she come to find Qing Feng? Because her mother is also Qing Feng's mother. Their mother wants to see her daughters. And their mother has good relations with Jing. I see, whispered Lin Feng. Lin Feng, if you go back to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, go to the Void Phoenix clan, and go see Qing Feng. She went to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds because of you. Otherwise she wouldn't have gone. The old man sighed. Lin Feng shivered. He remembered back then when she had gotten injured for him. She also wanted to finish in the top 100. That was because she wanted to find another way to go to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. And she wanted to go there to stay with him. When Lin Feng thought about that, he felt guilty again. He owed so many people. He felt like an ingrate. I have to sort some things out. I am about go to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. The Snow Clan and I agreed on a 20-year period. I'll also go and see Qing Feng. Lin Feng informed the old man respectfully. 20 years time flies. Lin Feng, will you be all right? Asked the old man, smiling at Lin Feng. It's not a big deal, Lin Feng nodded. The old man's eyes twinkled. Lin Feng was so self-confident. Besides, he didn't understand Lin Feng's cultivation, like he had no cultivation level anymore. Come, said the old man, raising his glass and smiling. He was inwardly amazed. And he couldn't help but think of forbidden people. Was Lin Feng a forbidden person? In the vast celestial ancient city, the Prince of Sadness had died. Many people had been astonished, especially the Moon Palace. Many people started looking for Lin Feng. Deep within the Moon Palace, a beautiful woman raised her head. Her eyes glittered, and her heart was pounding. She thought of something. It seemed he was back. She fully remembered her previous humiliation. However, she had the impression everything was a dream. She sensed his presence. He was near. Behind her was a man with hair black as ink. He was standing there like her shadow. He said nothing. You've been feeling ill at ease these years. His voice finally rose from behind her. His voice seemed to come from the netherworld. The beautiful woman was surprised. Her heart twitched. You're being influenced by your clones? The woman frowned and said coldly, That's enough. The person behind her remained silent, sighing and walking away. She was startled. She turned around and thought of something, running after him. Duan Xinyi was in her palace practicing cultivation. However, at that moment, a terrifying qi filled the air and surrounded her chambers. Who's that? Shouted Duan Xinyi coldly. However, she heard music, and her face stiffened. She said, Master of the 9 netherworlds. Her chambers exploded with a loud boom, and demon intent filled the air. Duan Xinyi's face changed drastically. 9 netherworlds, stop, said a voice coldly. Another woman arrived and shouted furiously. If you kill her, I will never see you again. The 9 Netherworlds demon landed next to Duan Xinyi and stared at her. However, he was a bit surprised inside. The beautiful woman took a deep breath, sweating coldly. That guy was insane. He wanted to kill Duan Xinyi. Luckily, she had reacted quickly. Duan Xinyi also had cold sweats. She looked at the 9 Netherworlds demon, never thinking he'd try to kill her. Xinyi, don't leave the Moon Palace, said Empress Shi. Duan Xinyi nodded. She didn't know why though. The vast celestial ancient city was a gigantic city. After the Moon Palace and the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan had reappeared, nothing extraordinary had happened there until the news spread that Chu Chun Chiu, who was born there, had finished third at the meeting of the Continent of the 9 Clouds, and Lin Feng, the one who had been abandoned by the gods, had finished first. However, neither of them had returned since then. A group of people had arrived outside of the city. The person at the very front of the group was a Taoist priest, seated on a cloud. He was holding a whisk and smiling. Vast celestial ancient city, the great emperor is back, murmured the Taoist priest. Behind him were many other people. All of them were incredibly strong. Walking next to him was someone all in black. Teacher, why did Lin Feng call us here? Fu Hei asked the old Taoist priest. To fight, of course, replied Yendi. Fight? Against whom? He made us come back from so far away to fight, said Fu Hei. He's my disciple. He's so strong thanks to me. Last time, at the meeting of the Continent of the 9 Clouds, he finished first, but he didn't give me credit, because I wasn't there. But anyway, he's my disciple, and I have to help him, said Yendi, scratching his beard and smiling thinly. Fu Hei's mouth twitched, but he was used to hearing such things. He said, Indeed. You are extraordinarily talented, teacher, so your disciples are incredible too. Indeed, you're the only exception though, said Yendi disdainfully. Then he added, You're a miserable disciple. You're a disgrace. Without me, you'd still be a low-level emperor. Even though you're extremely stupid, I went through lots of hardships to raise you and make you stronger. And finally I managed to make you a great emperor. You were extremely lucky to meet me. Maybe you've been good in your previous lives. Yendi said calmly. Fu Hei nodded and agreed obediently. Without you, I wouldn't even have become an emperor. I educated you properly, said Yendi approvingly. The two people were talking naturally. The people behind also seemed to find their conversation natural. Down on the ground, many people raised their heads and watched them. They were astonished and started shaking at the power passing above. A few hours later, many beasts arrived, their chi terrifying. It rolled in waves and carried everything away, blotting out the sky. That group was composed of 18 people. Their chi shook everyone in the city. What's going on? People above the lake of the vast celestial ancient city were astonished, their hearts pounding. Was something big going to happen? Since that young man had come and killed the Prince of Sadness, some weird things were happening in the vast celestial ancient city. Chapter 2266. Going back to the Moon Palace in the animal world. Lin Feng's robe was fluttering in the wind at the top of a mountain. He gazed into the distance and saw a Taoist priest. He smiled thinly. Little boy, not bad. I can't even see how strong you are anymore. No wonder. I raised you, said Yendi, looking at Lin Feng happily. Apart from the old man of the animal world, Yendi was the only person who knew Lin Feng was a forbidden person. Even though he was curious and didn't understand what it meant, he didn't think about it too much. Old buddy, as humble as before I see, Lin Feng smiled. He nodded at Yendi and Fu Hei. He also looked over the group of people behind Yendi. Even though there weren't many people, they were all very old, and they had all studied the rebirth scriptures. They were really strong. Yendi looked at Lin Feng and said, You had me come back to fight against the Moon Palace. Do you know who supports the Moon Palace? Are those stories about the 3 lives great emperor true? Lin Feng asked. Back then in Shuiyu, Lin Feng had read the word, Goddess, Empress Shi's grave. Yendi had said he had robbed it, and that he had then been chased. But he hadn't revealed everything, Lin Feng knew. Of course, Yendi used to be the prince of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan. And back then the 3 lives emperor had destroyed the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan. Their relations were complex. The Three Lives Emperor loved her, that's true, said Yindi nodding. First mystery solved, he loved her. How strong is the Three Lives Great Emperor? Asked Lin Feng. Nobody can be stronger in this world, said Yindi calmly. Lin Feng's heart began to race. The Three Lives Great Emperor was so terrifying? I see. So why did Empress Shi die back then, when the Moon Palace was destroyed? Asked Lin Feng. Because Empress Shi hates the Three Lives Emperor, replied Yindi. She would never ask him for help. She hopes that someday she'll surpass him and kill him. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. What an incredible story. But Lin Feng didn't really care. He just knew that the Moon Palace had to be destroyed. So, if the Three Lives Emperor doesn't show up, the Moon Palace will be destroyed, said Lin Feng indifferently. I had you come to ask you for something too. It's ready, said Yindi, giving a jade talisman to Lin Feng. Lin Feng put his godly awareness inside and glanced at Yindi. This guy understood Lin Feng. The talisman contained the rebirth scriptures. He already knew Lin Feng wanted to ask him for them. Old buddy, thank you very much, smiled Lin Feng. Even though Yindi was annoying sometimes, he was incredibly generous. The rebirth scriptures were precious to Lin Feng. When will you be ready to attack? Asked Yindi. Since we're all ready tomorrow. The Moon Palace must be destroyed, said Lin Feng calmly. He gazed into the distance. Xianyu was probably in the Moon Palace. He was wondering what to do with Empress Shi. Yindi nodded. One day passed quickly. The vast celestial ancient city seemed as peaceful and calm as always. Nothing happened. However, 100 li away from the Ice Moon Lake, a group of people wearing black robes appeared. All those people were wearing dark clothes, and nobody could see their faces. They looked mysterious, their chi bestial and powerful. They were waiting. At the same time, in the pavilions above the Ice Moon Lake, there were many young women dancing and young men who were watching them. Even the women who weren't from the Moon Palace looked beautiful. All the men there were staring at those women. They were all outstanding and attractive. How come there are so many people today? Asked someone out on a boat. Some celestial women from the Moon Palace are coming, so there are always more men when they show up. Which one? A few. We're lucky to be able to see them. The crowd looked impatient. The celestial women of the Moon Palace were extremely famous for their beauty. The crowd didn't notice that a young man had arrived, staring at the lake. In the pavilions, the beautiful women were still dancing. Back then, when he was here, the gods had abandoned him. He had temporarily lost hope. However, he had gotten back onto his feet and had continued fighting. Now he had changed a lot, so many years had passed. He remembered that, but he didn't feel sad at all. He was just calm and composed. When he saw someone come out of the pavilion, he shivered. He had never forgotten. A passionate night. A couple for 100 days, such beautiful memories. Even if Lin Feng had gone through a lot in life, he couldn't forget her. Yirun Lei was even more beautiful than before. Her chi was dimly discernible. She smiled knowingly. She was bewitching, even in the middle of all those incredibly beautiful women, like a goddess. Empress She gazed into the distance and asked, "Is he here?" At the same time, Duan Xangyi was in her new chambers, and her heart was pounding. She sensed something, and Empress She didn't want her to come out. Empress She came out. Outside, the atmosphere was lively. However, some people raised their heads and gazed into the distance. How beautiful, who's that? Empress She, the leader of the Moon Palace. Empress She came out, and with so many beautiful women behind her too. Everybody was looking at them. Empress She was walking slowly, and arrived in front of the pavilion in which Yirun Lei and the others were. She studied the edge of the lake, looking for someone. Finally she noticed Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes gleamed. Empress She could recognize him? Actually, it was her instinct. Empress She looked at Lin Feng, and he also looked back at her calmly. She couldn't see how strong he was. "You came back," Empress She said suddenly. Everybody turned and looked at Lin Feng. Who is this guy? Surprisingly, Empress She came out personally to see him. "I'm back," Lin Feng nodded. She had indeed recognized him. "Back then, I could have killed you, but I wasn't cruel enough," Empress She sighed. She didn't know why she had never killed him. Lin Feng knew she was right, but he said, "You missed your chance. Now, you'll never have the opportunity ever again." "Is that so?" asked Empress Shi. His cultivation level was hidden. She didn't know how strong he was. In 20 years, could Lin Feng have become strong enough to compete with her? Behind Empress Shi, Renlei's heart was pounding. How familiar a voice, her heart started pounding. Was it him? "You've become extremely self-confident since you finished first at the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds," said Empress Shi calmly. People's hearts pounded even more furiously. First at the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds. 10 years before, in the top 3 of the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds, 2 cultivators were from the Dark Night region. One was even from the vast celestial ancient city, and the other one had amazed the vast celestial ancient city at some point in his life. One of them had been abandoned by the gods back then by the lake. He hadn't been cleansed by the cosmic energies of the earth and sky. There were many legends about him. Even children could tell those stories. Was he back? Was it him? Everybody looked at Lin Feng in a different way. That guy was Lin Feng? Renlei's heart was pounding even more. That was Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't admit who he was, but he didn't deny it either. He just looked at Empress Shi calmly and said, "I came to destroy the Moon Palace today." "Destroy the Moon Palace? How audacious," murmured the crowd. Even if he was Lin Feng, that was too arrogant. The Moon Palace was extremely strong. They were more powerful than ancient holy clans. Empress Shi's eyes glittered. "Destroy the Moon Palace? What makes you feel so confident?" she asked indifferently. Chapter 2267. Heaven Clan's appearance. Lin Feng looked back at Empress Shi calmly. He knew that Empress Shi had given up everything, had died and sealed herself in the 3 lives scriptures. She was stubborn. She wouldn't dismantle the Moon Palace willingly. A strong wind started blowing. People appeared on the horizon. The atmosphere became oppressive. Celestial Evolution Holy Clan? Empress Shi was startled. She saw Yan Di, her eyes glittering, and said, "You think a few cripples can destroy the Moon Palace?" "The Moon Palace will disappear from the vast celestial ancient city," said the old man of the animal world in the distance. A group of terrifying beasts also appeared. "Animal world, aren't you afraid of the consequences?" asked Empress Shi coldly. "I dissolved the animal world. I am free and unfettered now," said the old man indifferently. Empress Shi was astonished. Shooting sounds cut through the air, and more people in black robes appeared. Their chi was bestial. They were terrifyingly strong beasts, including some celestial imperial beasts. Their chi was terrifying. Who could compete with them? What a terrifying army. Since Lin Feng ranked first at the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds, 3 influential groups agreed to help him destroy the Moon Palace. It's the Moon Palace's Judgment Day. When Empress Shi saw this, she remained silent. The celestial women of the Moon Palace were staring at Lin Feng, especially Renlei. She remembered back in the days when they used to make love in the snow. Lin Feng was already obstinate and unruly back then. Now he had progressed so much. In less than 20 years, he had become so strong that he could land in front of the Moon Palace with an army. How domineering. Lin Feng had changed so much. He now looked calm, aloof and self-confident. "Go and kill him," ordered Empress Shi coldly. Instantly, a few celestial women ran forwards to kill him. They were all great emperors already, and they all knew many terrifying ancient scriptures, spells, skills and techniques, and they all had their own Tao already. Their chi surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at those women calmly. He absorbed all the Tao which surrounded him. The women sensed that, and were astonished. Now they could also sense the terrifying strength in Lin Feng's body. "Piss off," said Lin Feng aggressively. He released a terrifying Tao strength which thundered out, his voice also carrying an explosive, ancient strength. He instantly destroyed their attacks and injured them. Everybody was trembling, especially when they saw the celestial women of the Moon Palace cough up blood. They looked so weak in front of Lin Feng. Many men wanted to avenge them and attack Lin Feng. Screams kept spreading in the air. The celestial women fell down from the sky one after the other, their faces as pale as sheets of paper. They couldn't compete with Lin Feng. He was terrifyingly strong. and he could kill them easily. Empress, she looked at him coldly. She realized Lin Feng had changed completely. He was terrifyingly strong now, not a weak little boy anymore. According to rumors, 10 years after the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, Chu Chunxiu is practicing cultivation in the supreme animal world. He's practicing really hard, and now he's become a celestial emperor. Now Lin Feng, the first emperor of the continent of the 9 clouds, has become a terrifying fighter, muttered many people after seeing his voice attack. He hadn't only come back with a powerful army, he had also become incredibly strong. A terrifying qi emerged from the Moon Palace. Many people rose up into the air, their energies rumbling as they were unleashed. Their qi was impressive, especially Chu the Insaints. He was a descendant of King Chu, one of the 2 most outstanding geniuses in the history of the Chu clan. If he hadn't gone insane, the Moon Palace wouldn't have been able to control him. But it didn't matter now, because Chu Chunxiu had already surpassed Chu the Insane by far. The Moon Palace has always had talented individuals in hiding. Those people are really strong. They're all celestial emperors at least. They're controlled by the Moon Palace. They have no way to free themselves. Dear friends, if you help us today, the Moon Palace will give you many ancient scriptures, and we'll also let you get married to our celestial women. Empress, she offered at that moment calmly. Many men were immediately aroused. However, against such terrifying cultivators, ordinary people couldn't do much. This is between the Moon Palace and me, Lin Feng. If anyone helps them, I'll kill them instantly, said Lin Feng calmly. His qi surged around him. It seemed like a great war was on the verge of breaking out. Many strong cultivators had gathered around the Ice Moon Lake. Even some people from powerful groups were there. Their elders had informed them about the situation, so they had come to watch. When they heard Empress Shi, they were excited for a few seconds, but most people didn't want to get involved in the end. The enemies were too scary. However, some people still had some thoughts, such as the members of the Heaven clan. Song Ling was in the crowd, and staring at Lin Feng coldly. Back in the days, he had chased Lin Feng, trying to kill him. However, he hadn't had the opportunity. Lin Feng had become so strong, so quickly. He needed to get rid of him as soon as possible now. If Lin Feng broke through to the Tiandi layer, he wouldn't be able to kill him anymore. If the Heaven clan helped the Moon Palace, they'd probably kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and he's a member of the Fortune Shrine. Now he's a core disciple of the Fortune Shrine. I need to get rid of him. If he dies outside, the Fortune Shrine won't avenge him, I hope. They'll just say he was too weak if he died outside, right? Thought Song Ling, before looking at the Saint Emperor of the Heaven clan. Uncle, we don't like Lin Feng. We can't let him become stronger. We must get rid of him now. It's an opportunity. What do we do if the Fortune Shrine comes to avenge him? Said the Saint Emperor. I'll kill him. If the Fortune Shrine comes, I'll say I killed him, said Song Ling coldly. He had to stamp out the source of trouble and kill Lin Feng. Uncle, the Moon Palace is powerful, you know that. We can collaborate with them. It would be great for the Heaven clan. You know Lin Feng has to die. Continued Song Ling. As you wish, said the old man, but he hesitated. Lin Feng had ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and he was now a member of the Fortune Shrine. Killing him was dangerous, but if they didn't kill him, Lin Feng might remember them and come and destroy them, especially that now he wanted to destroy the Moon Palace. An old man called out to Lin Feng. Lin Feng, my boy. Lin Feng turned around and saw an old man. Standing behind Song Ling, Lin Feng said coldly, Heaven clan. Yes, Lin Feng, my boy. Back then tensions arose between you and my clan. It was all my fault. Let's forget about those things. I'm really old now, said the old man. Lin Feng understood what the old man was thinking. He looked at him, and the strong cultivators behind him. He smiled coldly inside. If he refused, what would happen? How sly. We'll talk about that after I'm done with the Moon Palace, said Lin Feng calmly. They posed a big threat to him. The man shook his head. I hope you can hurry and make up your mind. I know you want me to refuse, and I refuse, said Lin Feng aggressively and sharply. The old man released his qi and said, Since it's that way, The Heaven Clan will join hands with the Moon Palace. I had forgotten about the Heaven Clan at the beginning. I just remembered Song Ling. I didn't expect the Heaven Clan would get involved. Foolish, said Lin Feng coldly. The strong cultivators of the Heaven Clan were stunned. Lin Feng had forgotten about the Heaven Clan? They had just reminded him of their existence? Now they were enemies? Now they had to kill him. They had reached a point of no return. Song Ling, he's yours, slaughter him, the old man said to Song Ling telepathically. Song Ling nodded, staring at Lin Feng, his eyes filled with murder. Chapter 2268. Lin Feng's fighting abilities. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at Song Ling. A celestial emperor, and a strong kind of celestial emperor. After all, he had broken through to that cultivation layer a long time ago. Song Ling was standing in the sky. He shot forwards and released an oppressive strength around Lin Feng. He said coldly, "First emperor of the continent of the 9 clouds? So what? You'll die here now." He shouted furiously and lashed out. Heavenly hands appeared and blotted out the sky, reaching towards Lin Feng, trying to crush him. At the same time, Song Ling wasn't assured, so he continued racing towards Lin Feng, while releasing terrifying heaven cosmic energies. Lin Feng raised his hands and punched Song Ling's fists. There was an eruption as their fists collided. The heavenly hands exploded. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng's fighting abilities were incredible. He could easily destroy a celestial emperor's attacks. Song Ling descended from the sky and moved towards Lin Feng. Clouds appeared and a strong wind started blowing, fluttering Lin Feng's hair and robe. He could sense how strong the energies were. The ground exploded, and many people ran away. Some strong cultivators were too close and exploded. Blood gushed everywhere. That attack was purely physical, and it had crushed them and their souls. Lin Feng looked small amid that rain of flesh and blood. At that moment the atmosphere changed. Song Ling realized that everything was changing around them, as if they had ended up in another world. Suddenly, he was a great distance from Lin Feng. He shattered the confining space, and finally, Lin Feng reappeared normally at the same distance as him. So he ran withdraw. The great empty space technique had been broken instantly by Song Ling. Song Ling looked around. The others were not there. He exclaimed, "Territory strength? It's not territory strength, it's a world," said Lin Feng calmly. There was nothing but beautiful mountains and rivers around them. However, they weren't in the outside world. They were in Lin Feng's world. A world? Song Ling frowned, staring at Lin Feng. "How is that possible? You probably used a great imperial weapon." "Indeed, but that weapon is now surrounding us. We're in a remote world now," said Lin Feng. Song Ling didn't believe him. However, he was there to kill Lin Feng, not to think. "No matter what, I'll kill you," said Song Ling coldly. He ran forwards, his Tao strength surging up. However, he realized that his heaven strength didn't work here. "Since I've broken through to this mysterious cultivation layer, I haven't really fought. We'll see what it's like," said Lin Feng calmly. Around him, there was no spirit, no shadow, only strength which started condensing. He was a god in this world. He controlled everything. He was at the heart of every kind of strength, every kind of cosmic energy. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards. He was walking, but he was extremely fast. Song Ling sensed a terrifying strength. "Since I've leveled up and broken through to this mysterious cultivation layer?" There was the Di-Chi layer after the Huang-Chi layer, wasn't there? Lin Feng didn't know what it meant to be a forbidden person. He had no cultivation level? He wasn't sure, he just couldn't explain it. His Tao, however, had finally become complete. It contained all sorts of strength, all sorts of cosmic energies, the strength of the 10,000 things of creation. He was like a god in his world. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards and suddenly disappeared. Song Ling's heart started pounding. After that, a shadow appeared and grew in front of him. He only saw a fist moving towards his head. It contained death sword strength, as well as cursing and soundwave strength. Song Ling felt hopeless. "No!" shouted Song Ling desperately. "Why? How? How is this possible?" Song Ling condensed a terrifying heaven Tao strength in his fist, exploding against the incoming force. Lin Feng had disappeared already, and Song Ling's attack instantly broke apart. His face turned deathly pale as panic set in. He forgot how to fight at that moment. He even forgot he was a celestial emperor. Actually, even though Lin Feng had broken through, the speed at which he became stronger was still limited. Before breaking through, he could easily kill celestial emperors, and afterwards, his cultivation had become more stable, and he had become slightly stronger. Now he was about as strong as a cultivator at the top of the Tiandi layer. Of course, apart from his attacks, Lin Feng's body and his special strength had also increased. In his dreams, he had been bombarded by dark lightning. He had a special kind of strength in his body now, and he had used it when the celestial women had attacked him before. In addition, his physical strength was still incredible. He had the physical strength of a celestial emperor too. Even though Lin Feng had no cultivation level, his strength could be compared to the strength of someone who had the strength at the top of the Tiandi layer. With such strength, he could easily kill Song Ling. Another terrifying strength bombarded Song Ling. He was smashed brutally away. However, Lin Feng reappeared in front of him. When Song Ling saw how calm and composed Lin Feng looked, he was even more terrified. "I thought you were definitely going to kill me," said Lin Feng calmly. His voice resonated in Song Ling's head. "I will show you what strength is." Terrifying lights appeared and moved towards Song Ling roar. Song Ling shouted furiously. He condensed more heaven strength, but he didn't control strength in there. He released as much strength as he could. It turned into a terrifying cloud of Tao. Lin Feng moved as fast as lightning, raising his fist and condensing strength in it. 9 words appeared around him. He used his celestial stage deployment spell, and he condensed deployment spell forbidden lightnings too. Song Ling's heaven fist broke apart instantly, and he retreated. However, Lin Feng was too fast. A terrifying punch struck him and pierced through his neck. His back was turned to Lin Feng, and he saw a fist appear in front of his head. It had pierced through his neck from behind and out the other side. Lin Feng's fist was like a sword. He looked hopeless. How was this possible? He was completely powerless in front of Lin Feng, and Lin Feng could easily destroy him. "You wanted to die," Lin Feng told him evenly, and then punched his head again. In the outside world, a great war had started. Where Lin Feng was, a curtain made of illusion strength had appeared, and nobody knew what was going on inside. That illusion had the shape of Fortune City. The illusion began to disperse. Many people suddenly turned around and saw Lin Feng appear. And he was alone. "Song Ling," the crowd frowned. Lin Feng stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. "Lin Feng killed Song Ling?" blurted out many people shocked. Song Ling was terrifyingly strong, a public figure in the vast celestial ancient city. However, he had disappeared and probably been killed. "He must have used a precious treasure," hissed some people. Lin Feng's fighting abilities couldn't be as terrifying as Chu Chun Chio's. The strong cultivators of the Heaven clan grimaced. Lin Feng was back, and Song Ling was probably dead since he wasn't there. In the distance, some strong cultivators appeared. They were from the Heaven clan, and were furious. "Who killed my son Song Ling?" When the crowd heard that, they shivered. As expected, Song Ling was dead, and his father had arrived. "Lin Feng, you want to die?" swore Song Ling's uncle coldly. A huge army of the Heaven clan had arrived. They were going to help the Moon Palace and destroy these people. "Humph," Lin Feng grunted coldly. He wanted to see how strong the Heaven clan could be. Apart from the strongest of them, the rest were only cannon fodder. Chapter 2269. "I'll keep you as a slave." Everybody had moved far away from the Ice Moon Lake. The atmosphere was explosive, and the battles were deadly. Nobody dared stay there. Lin Feng didn't even look at the Heaven clan's members. The ancient holy clans of the vast celestial ancient city were too weak. Even if the Heaven clan had a saint emperor, it didn't matter because he was alone. 3 of Lin Feng's protectors, who were celestial imperial beasts, could join hands and easily defeat an ordinary saint emperor like the one from the Heaven clan. Even some of the celestial emperors of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan were terrifying. Therefore, the Heaven clan didn't frighten Lin Feng. Lin Feng was standing on the edge of the Ice Moon Lake. He looked at the beautiful woman, Empress Shi, and the 9 Netherworlds Emperor was like her shadow. Without you, the Moon Palace can't exist, Lin Feng said to Empress Shi calmly. He released Qi in a great pulse. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor jumped in front of Empress Shi without hesitation. Good heavens, the 9 Netherworlds Emperor. Back in the days we were a bit famous. We've both died once and now here we meet again. Let's see who's become stronger between you and me, said Yendi calmly. They had both died in the past, especially the 9 Netherworlds Emperor. Without the rebirth scriptures, he would just be a thread of consciousness. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor looked at Yendi. The source of the 9 Netherworlds appeared in his eyes. He started singing the 9 Netherworlds song. Sound waves surrounded Yendi. A huge sun appeared behind Yendi, dazzling and scorching hot. The 9 Netherworlds' strength started burning. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor and Yendi moved towards each other. The water of the Ice Moon Lake churned beneath them. Very quickly, only Lin Feng and Empress Shi were left on the ground. Empress Shi, you stole my wife. I'll keep you as a slave. It will be deep love between you and me, said Lin Feng evenly. Empress Shi's face shifted. A cold qi filled the air around her, emotionless Dao power, and moved towards Lin Feng. This bastard dared say he wanted to keep her as a slave for deep love? Show me if you're strong enough to talk to me, said Empress Shi coldly. She flashed away. An emotionless strength swept out. Lin Feng sensed her emotionless strength, and suddenly felt ice cold. Empress Shi accelerated, landing in front of Lin Feng. Her emotionless strength turned into a terrifying sword. She wanted to cut apart Lin Feng's body and soul, freeze him so hard his blood stopped flowing. Lin Feng's godly awareness started intertwining. A dazzling golden light flashed. Lin Feng stretched out his hand, also releasing a sharp sword. Their strength collided and exploded. Empress Shi disappeared, and after that, the crowd saw many Empress Shi shadows everywhere. How beautiful! Lin Feng glanced at them, and the atmosphere around them changed. The Fortune City illusion came down again. Lin Feng walked forwards. The strength of the 10,000 things of creation turned into life and death Dao. His Dao strength fused together with his forbidden strength and surrounded everything. There were cracking sounds as Empress Shi's shadows broke apart one after another. Only her real body was left. She was so beautiful. But at that moment, the death energies had corroded her body. His death Dao has reached the maximum level. He also controls a terrifying kind of destructive strength, thought Empress Shi, shaking. How was that possible? How had Lin Feng become so strong? She was a genius too. She was extremely strong back then when Lin Feng was young and weak. How had he surpassed her? You hate me that much? Empress Shi asked Lin Feng. She sighed. Her emotionless strength disappeared. Lin Feng frowned. Empress Shi said calmly, my 2 clones are your wives. They've seen you grow up, however, we had no choice but to be enemies. You know how I feel. Lin Feng was astonished as he stared at Empress Shi. Xian Yi and Qiu Xian were his wives. They loved him. And Empress Shi had always sensed it. Lin Feng hadn't known that. Empress Shi slowly descended to the ground. Suddenly, Lin Feng saw Xian Yi and Qiu Xian, 2 illusions. You studied the 3 lives scriptures. You must know that what they've experienced, I experienced too. I don't want to be your enemy, you know? Empress Shi said to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. He sensed that she had feelings. Empress Shi looked at Lin Feng's face. He had the impression she was his wife too. At that moment, Lin Feng's heart softened. He almost forgot he hated her. However, at that moment he sensed danger. A deadly emotionless strength shot towards him, like a sharp sword. However, he could still see love in her eyes. Something was wrong. Emotion Dao. Lin Feng was astonished. Empress Shi knew both emotionless and emotion Dao. A terrifying emotionless strength crashed onto Lin Feng's body. But Empress Shi's face suddenly changed, because she realized that Lin Feng's body was extremely hard. Her energies couldn't pierce through his skin. Lin Feng had condensed gold cosmic energies. When did you study gold-type cosmic energies? Empress Shi's face stiffened. She thought she understood Lin Feng's cultivation, because Qiu Xian had always been with him. She knew his weaknesses. Therefore, she had given up emotionless Dao and had studied emotion Dao. Initially, it wasn't on purpose. It was because she really loved him. Lin Feng was sane and determined. He could still sense her emotions, but they were fake. Because of that, She had had the opportunity to attack. Even if the strength hadn't destroyed him, as long as it could pierce through him, that would have been fine, but it hadn't. Gold cosmic energies were almost indestructible. But why did Lin Feng know gold cosmic energies? I understand the cosmic energies of the 5 elements, said Lin Feng calmly. His hands grabbed Empress Shi, and he hugged her. He released overwhelming destructive death strength and forbidden strength, which penetrated into her body. Empress Shi's face was frozen. She didn't dare move. Let me go, she cried out. She never thought she'd fail so miserably. Lin Feng's physical strength and gold-type strength were just too incredible. She couldn't injure him at all. Lin Feng was tightly hugging her. Empress Shi released a massive emotionless intent. Lin Feng firmly held her, smiling, and said, Indeed, Xan Yi and Yu Xin are my wives. Tell me, what can I do regarding the connection you have to them? Empress Shi's face slightly changed. She looked at Lin Feng's smile. She had the impression she was going insane. She struggled to get away. You're so beautiful. You'll be my love slave, how nice, said Lin Feng with a smile. He started kissing Empress Shi's mouth. She was petrified, her face all pale. Her eyes rolled helplessly. You'll die, she shouted furiously. She released a terrifying qi. But Lin Feng countered with a massive death strength, which brought her come back to her senses. She had made a mistake. She had released emotion strength. It was too late to regret. You know about everything that happened between my wives and me. I will keep you as a love slave, said Lin Feng, smiling heartlessly. Empress Shi was scared to death. She whispered, Try and dare. Why wouldn't I dare? Said Lin Feng. You'll become my love slave. That way, you won't be able to make my wives leave me, because you'll stand by me like a good girl. If you dare touch me, I'll kill you, said Empress Shi, releasing more and more emotionless qi. Will you feel like leaving me then, though? Lin Feng asked coldly. I'll first take you to my world. I will do exactly what I said. After that, they appeared in another world. In the outside world, the 9 Netherworlds Emperor and Yin Di were fighting. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor could still oppress Yin Di, but he was worried about Empress Shi. He looked at the Fortune City illusion and said, Destroy the illusion. The strong cultivators of the Moon Palace rushed over. However, the strong cultivators of the animal world and the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan could stop them. They surrounded them, but at that moment the illusion disappeared. Chapter 2270. The Moon Palace dismantled. The crowd watched the city illusion disappear, and Lin Feng reappeared. Lin Feng was alone. Empress Shi had disappeared. All right, everybody can disperse, said Lin Feng indifferently. Everybody stopped fighting. Many strong cultivators looked at Lin Feng. Had Lin Feng killed Empress Shi? Without Empress Shi, could the Moon Palace exist? A terrifying strength charged towards Lin Feng. Sky-absorbing strength surrounded him. Chu the Insane shot towards Lin Feng. Oomph! The old man of the animal world grunted coldly and jumped in front of him. They collided. At the same time, a strong cultivator of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan jumped forwards, and they encircled Chu the Insane. The 9 Netherworlds song resonated in Lin Feng's brain. A pair of pitch-black eyes stared at him. 9 Netherworlds Master, so many years have passed, wake up. Why act like that? Lin Feng said to the Netherworld Demon Emperor. Lin Feng also released 9 Netherworld strength. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had transmitted the 9 Netherworld song to Lin Feng many years ago. Master, you transmitted the 9 Netherworld song to me back then, but you used the rebirth scriptures to come back to life, and your cultivation is restricted. You can't do much to me. Forget about it, said Lin Feng calmly. The Netherworld Demon Emperor raced towards Lin Feng, releasing 9 Netherworld strength towards Lin Feng. However, at the same time, Lin Feng released Restriction Death Dao and 9 Netherworld strength. How miserable! Lin Feng walked forwards like a god. He suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of the 9 Netherworlds Emperor. Dazzling lights flared blindingly. The 9 Netherworlds Emperor and Lin Feng collided. The Emperor groaned with pain. His body felt numb. Lin Feng's fighting abilities were terrifying many people. Lin Feng had ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. He had disappeared for so many years, and now that he was back, his fighting abilities had become even more terrifying. He was even stronger than Chu Chun Xiu who, according to legends, had a forbidden body. The Fortune Shrine had done that on purpose. Many people believed that Chu Chun Xiu, who practiced cultivation in the supreme animal world, had a forbidden body. The Netherworld Demon Emperor was knocked away by Lin Feng. The Netherworld Demon Emperor looked at Lin Feng coldly, and threw himself at Lin Feng again. Humph! Lin Feng groaned coldly. He shouted furiously, "World of the living imprints!" Imprints appeared. A death world appeared and surrounded his opponent. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had used the rebirth scriptures to come back to life. His strength wasn't as good as back in the old days. He couldn't compete with Lin Feng. The world of the living imprints contained death strength. They pounded the Netherworld Demon Emperor. His organs twitched violently, and he was driven back again. Some of his organs exploded, and he coughed up blood. His face turned gray. The Nine Netherworlds Emperor looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's attacks contained an incredible amount of strength. He was like a god of the 10,000 things of creation. How confusing, how complex. He never thought that this young man would ever become this strong. On top of that, he had killed Empress Shi. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the other battles. He rose up higher in the air. He shot towards the Saint Emperor of the Heaven Clan. At that moment, 3 terrifying celestial imperial beasts were fighting against the Heaven Clan's Saint Emperor. He was encircled. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng. The 3 celestial imperial beasts had terrifying fighting abilities. The Heaven Clan's Saint Emperor wasn't a very strong Saint Emperor. Bestial chi had filled the air and surrounded him. Golden lights flashed as they fought against him. The Saint Emperor shouted furiously. He released Heaven's strength, which turned into an armor and protected him. At the same time, he punched out all around him. The earth and sky were trembling. Lin Feng released the strength of the 10,000 things of creation, and deployment marks started intertwining. Holy spirits appeared as an ancient chi filled the air. All those kinds of strength fused together in his hands. "I know, I'll call you Godly Tao. And my cultivation level, I will call you God level. Now it's only the early stage. With my body, I can control every kind of strength. And I will keep becoming stronger," thought Lin Feng. He released forbidden strength, which condensed into his hands as well. He disappeared and reappeared in front of the Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor stared at Lin Feng. He condensed heaven's strength in his hands, as if he controlled the strength of heaven and earth. Then he punched out in Lin Feng's direction. The earth and sky crackled. Their fists collided. A terrifying strength exploded. Many people around sensed those terrifying energies. Could Lin Feng compete with the Saint Emperor too? "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. A terrifying death strength penetrated into his opponent's body. His strength pressed forward with an indomitable will. The man felt horribly oppressed. At the same time, the 3 celestial imperial beasts also attacked, and the Heaven Clan's strong cultivator's face turned deathly pale. A dazzling fire sword appeared, and pierced through the Saint Emperor's head. Many Heaven Ancient imprints appeared, but a great rock released sword strength, which cut apart his imprints and destroyed them. At the same time, the 2 other terrifying celestial imperial beasts also used their most powerful attacks. Energies exploded catastrophically. The Saint Emperor looked hopeless. He was staring at Lin Feng, his eyes bloodshot. He gave up everything, and released all his heaven strength towards Lin Feng. He just wanted to kill Lin Feng. He didn't care about the others anymore. The energy of the 10,000 things of creation became golden. Lin Feng took out his plaited bamboo hat and cloak from the Fortune Shrine, and put them on. The terrifying ancient imprints contained sword strength and struck Lin Feng. However, the attack was not effective at all. The golden great rock's sword pierced through the opponent's head, and at the same time, the 2 other beasts also attacked his head. They tore apart his skull, then ripped him in 2 at his waist, before tearing his body into several parts. Lin Feng smashed the skull violently. The Saint Emperor was resistant, and killing him wasn't easy. Lin Feng used a godly attack. The crowd was astonished when they saw those 3 beasts, and that human being attacked the Saint Emperor. Their faces frozen in disbelief. Impossible. Their hearts were pounding furiously. He was done dead. When the Saint Emperor died, the other members of the Heaven clan were suddenly terrified. After he disappeared, Lin Feng and the others glanced at the battlefield coldly for a moment, then continued moving. They went after another Saint Emperor. That Saint Emperor retreated and immediately fled. The last Saint Emperor wanted to escape as well. It wasn't easy to become a Saint Emperor. How could he take risks? Two Saint Emperors were fleeing. The battle was becoming easier and easier. After killing the Heaven clan's Saint Emperors, only those controlled by the Moon Palace were left. They were among the strongest cultivators of the Moon Palace. Back then, the ancient holy clans were under the command of the Moon Palace. Now, the Animal World and the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan had dismantled the Moon Palace. The palace had no influence anymore, and the celestial women of the Moon Palace were not strong enough to fight them. Lin Feng was standing in the sky. He looked at the celestial women and the others and said, "You have the time needed to burn a joss stick to leave. The Moon Palace doesn't exist anymore." Renlei raised her head and looked at Lin Feng. Back then, when he was here by the lake, he looked hopeless. And now, he had dismantled the Moon Palace. Lin Feng walked towards the Moon Palace, releasing his godly awareness and inspecting every single corner of it. His silhouette flickered, and very quickly, he found the main palace. He opened all the rooms and quickly found a beautiful woman. Lin Feng. Duan Xianyi was astonished when she saw him. Her eyes instantly became red, her vision blurry. Finally, the figure she had seen in her dreams was here. Xianyi. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered. He immediately jumped out and took her hand. Xianyi felt so sad, she said to Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, I might not be able to control myself anymore soon." "No, I imprisoned Empress Shi," said Lin Feng, caressing her cheeks. "Let's go out." He brought Xianyi outside. He turned about and released destructive strength, destroying the moon palaces. Outside, the atmosphere had calmed down. Apart from Chu the Insane and some others, everybody had almost left. A terrifying attack struck Chu the Insane, and more people encircled him. He shouted furiously and turned into a beam of light, escaping. Nobody prevented him from leaving. Without Empress Shi, the Moon Palace didn't exist anymore. The battle was over, but the Watchers' hearts kept pounding violently. So many terrifying people had died, especially the strong cultivators of the Heaven clan. It had been a tragedy for them. Renlei and the Netherworld Demon Emperor were still there. Lin Feng just glanced at them, and afterwards he said to his friends, "Master, old buddy, come with me. We're going to destroy the Heaven clan." "All right," said the old man of the animal world agreeably. Lin Feng waved, and the 18 beasts in black clothes and the old leader of the animal world followed him. They were on their way to the Heaven clan. The people on the ground were astonished. How dreadful! The Heaven clan was going to be destroyed. Chapter 2271. What are emotions? Lin Feng was standing in the sky, his robe fluttering in the wind. The one who used to be a weak young man now had the potential to become a peerless cultivator someday. He was already standing among some of the strongest cultivators in the world. He looked at the 9 Netherworld's emperor and said, "You should understand that considering the relationship I have to Empress Shi, I won't kill her. However, I can't let her go either." The 9 Netherworld's emperor's cold expression faded. He looked at Lin Feng with mixed feelings. After a few minutes, he said slowly, "Yu Shi and I have an innocent affection for each other. We were childhood sweethearts. She's pure, innocent and kind. She doesn't understand the complex relations people can have. However, one day, her father killed her mother and wanted to take her away. From that day, Yu Shi changed. She became cold and detached. She gradually changed her way of practicing cultivation and finally left her family forever. I know that she wasn't willing to do those things. I'm the same as Yu Shi, I'm ordinary. However, I saw her change more and more. So I decided to become a demon too. To become strong, I gave up everything else. Finally, I became a strong demon. However, I realized that I couldn't become stronger than Yu Shi's father. Yu Shi knew she wasn't talented enough, so she decided to die," said the 9 Netherworld's emperor slowly. These stories were old. Everybody was ordinary at the beginning of their lives, no matter how talented they were. Lin Feng could understand that because of his own experience, and also because he had experienced the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives. He also knew that ordinary people could also rise up, step by going through lots of difficulties. Lin Feng, Yushi has had many opportunities to kill you, but she hasn't. Nobody understands her because she tries to control her passion, anger and greed, in other words, her red dust. I also know that because of her two clones, she has emotions and feelings. She's been influenced by her clones. Therefore, she couldn't kill you. I hope that you'll treat her fairly and kindly, said the Nine Netherworlds Emperor calmly. A terrifying pitch-black fire began burning around his body. Lin Feng frowned. I'm already dead. I came back to life thanks to the rebirth scriptures, but there are limits. I can't protect Yushi. I couldn't do much for her or stop you. My life has become pointless. You have to protect her. I hope she'll see you become strong. I hope you'll treat her as your wife and treat her fairly. I feel sad for her, said the Nine Netherworlds Emperor. His body was burning more and more. His whole body became illusionary. He was slowly disappearing as he stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng could see from his eyes how deeply he cared about Empress Shi. Treat Yushi kindly and fairly, said the Nine Netherworlds Emperor while disappearing. He turned into a pond of Nine Netherworlds water and moved towards Lin Feng, penetrated into his body, and then disappeared forever. Many people were astonished and speechless. The Nine Netherworlds Emperor had decided to die. He had turned into Tao, and had granted that Tao to Lin Feng for the sake of Empress Shi. True emotions. Lin Feng took a deep breath. He sensed that his Nine Netherworlds strength had suddenly increased greatly. He knew the Nine Netherworlds Emperor was extremely sad, and for Empress Shi, he had decided to die. He had dedicated his life to Empress Shi. I thought that the Netherworld Demon Emperor had met Empress Shi much later in life, and that he had then fallen in love with her. I never thought that they had known each other for so long. So they lived separated for a while. And then he came back, sighed an old man. Only the Netherworld Demon Emperor and Empress She knew the exact details of their story. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had told some of the details a moment before. And then he had died. Yendi was astonished too. He had made some strong cultivators of the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan go to the Heaven Clan. He didn't go there. When he saw that the Nine Netherworlds Emperor had turned into Dao's strength and penetrated into Lin Feng's body, he sighed. What are emotions? He was a great demon emperor, and now he is dead. The Netherworld Demon Emperor had dedicated his life to Empress Shi, and now he had died for her too. Empress Shi was in Lin Feng's spirit's world. She had a jade necklace around her neck, and suddenly it broke apart. Her heart started pounding, she couldn't believe it. She put her hands on her necklace, her face paled. Tears appeared in her eyes. She hadn't cried for 1,000 years, but now she was crying again. Brother Netherworlds, shouted Empress Shi hoarsely. It was so painful. She fell down onto her knees. She remembered those beautiful times, those flourishing periods, when both of them used to laugh a lot. She had cherished those moments. Those were the best times in her life. And now the man who she considered the sunshine of her life was dead. I'm sorry. Empress She put her hands on her head, kissing her jade necklace. She cried unceasingly and said in a fragile voice, Brother Netherworlds, I'm so sorry. I've always considered you as my biological brother, but when we found each other again after such a long time, I never smiled at you again. I'm so sorry. She kept crying, her heart ached. Empress Shi had always considered the Nine Netherworlds Emperor as her own brother. He was the closest person she had in life, and now he was dead. She was alone. She didn't look like a strong, cold, and detached woman at that moment. She looked like a fragile little girl, lost and hopeless. In the outside world, Lin Feng sighed speechless. The Nine Netherworlds Emperor really loved Yushi. It was both touching and moving. The Nine Netherworlds Emperor had become a part of Lin Feng. He hoped Lin Feng would take care of Empress Shi and treat her fairly. Lin Feng had to treat Empress Shi as one of his own wives. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky. It was a beautiful day. Lin Feng looked at Yiren Lei. He smiled broadly, enough to melt an iceberg. That smile was the most beautiful smile Lei had ever seen in her life, and she started crying. Lei, who was strong and determined, started crying like a little girl too. How have you been all these years? Lin Feng asked her. Tired, but I've progressed a lot, said Lei, forcing herself to smile. What do you intend to do in the future? Asked Lin Feng. Lei looked pensive, but then she smiled at Lin Feng in a seductive way, looking devastatingly beautiful, and said, I'll continue progressing on my path. I'll become an ice and snow goddess, and I'll wait for my demon prince, like we promised each other. She turned around and left, looking confident and at ease. She was still smiling, but she also had tears in her eyes. What were emotions? Emotions were more powerful than life and death. Lin Feng watched Lei slowly disappear into the distance. He took a deep breath and thought, take care. Lin Feng had gone through so much in life. There had been so many changes in his life. I would have kept her, said Di indifferently. Lin Feng looked at him and said, Old buddy, haven't you found someone you like? No hurry, another 1,000 years, or a reincarnation maybe, said Di, smiling in a free and unrestrained way. By the way, don't forget what the diviner said back in the day. I'm your protector, so you have to help me. When will you bring me to the diviner? I need to see him. What he said is almost a promise. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. Di wanted to see the diviner? Did the diviner mean that back then? Lin Feng asked speechlessly. Do you think a little boy like you can help me change my destiny? Hilarious, replied Di, rolling his eyes. Lin Feng was speechless for a moment, but finally nodded and said, All right, I'll take you to the fortune shrine. You're a good boy, said Di plainly. And then he burst into laughter. He flew towards the moon palace, wondering if there were treasures inside. Lin Feng looked after him stunned. Fu Hei laughed and followed his master. Like teacher, like disciple, said Lin Feng speechlessly. The others wanted to go into the palace as well, but didn't dare because of Lin Feng. Lin Feng had changed. Back in the days, people in the vast celestial ancient city could bully him. Now he could destroy the moon palace, the heaven clan. A strong wind was blowing and brushing against people's bodies. The vast celestial ancient city had been peaceful and calm for a long time, and now new incredible things had happened. It wouldn't take long for the news to spread that the Heaven clan had been wiped off the map of the continent. Chapter 2272. Feeling unsafe in the vast celestial ancient city, Lin Feng had dismantled the moon palace and saved Xanyi. He felt relieved. Lin Feng didn't stop in the vast celestial ancient city. The 20-year period was slowly approaching. Lin Feng wanted to go to the Holy Spirit dynasty to see Qiongsheng, and then to the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds with Di. He also wanted to inform Shiju Lao Xian that he intended to go to the Snow Clan. In Qitian Holy Town, all the dynasties had lofty buildings. However, the strongest influential group there wasn't a dynasty. It was the Animal District. They had brought the 13 young beast masters back to life. They had sacrificed incredible amounts of beasts for those 13 young beast masters. Apart from that, they had also invited a bunch of beasts, and the beasts had also started having children, who became powerful fighters. The Animal District considered themselves unexcelled in the world. The beasts who hadn't died continued rising. The Animal District started oppressing the dynasties, so in the end, the dynasties decided to form an alliance. The Animal District didn't dare bully them anymore. The Holy Spirit dynasty was under pressure because back then, they had chosen to form an alliance with Lin Feng. So the Holy Spirit dynasty, and all the other dynasties didn't have good relations. It was visible in various aspects. Luckily, 10 years ago, Lin Feng had finished first at the meeting of the continent of the Nine Clouds, so the other dynasties had stopped bullying the Holy Spirit dynasty too much. Now the Holy Spirit dynasty was waiting for Lin Feng to become a peerless cultivator, and for Lin Qiongsheng to become a really strong and talented cultivator in his generation. Lin Qiongsheng stopped practicing cultivation, and he came out of his room. He took a deep breath. He felt good. He was 20 years old, and he had already reached the very top of the Huang Qi layer. His qi was powerful. He looked handsome. He had inherited the best features from both of his parents. He raised his head and looked at the sun, smiling. My absorbing Tao is becoming great. It has already reached the first step. Now the holy princes and princesses of all the other dynasties can't really compete with me anymore. Back in the days, my father captured the ancient Jade dynasty's holy woman. Now I'll try too. Lin Qiongsheng started flying. Today, a meeting was planned, and all the holy princesses and princes of all the dynasties had agreed to meet and exchange views on cultivation. It was a kind of competition. Every generation organized such events. Lin Feng had gone through such things. Lin Qiongsheng was going through such things as well. Just after Lin Qiongsheng left the Holy Spirit dynasty, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu appeared. The guards of the Holy Spirit dynasty were astonished, but everybody knew them there. Even if they had never seen them for real, they had seen illusions. The Holy Dynasty prince and the mother of his child. They were both holy parents. Holy! The guard's mouth was wide open, he didn't know what to say. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu smiled at him and entered the Holy Spirit dynasty. The guard was stunned, but he took out a jade talisman and informed some people the two were there. The message raced up to the top of the hierarchy. In the Holy Spirit dynasty's holy palace, Holy Emperor Ling quickly learned about it. After that, many strong cultivators went out to welcome Lin Feng. It was the politest thing they could do. The most important people of the Holy Spirit dynasty had to receive a warm welcome. Lin Feng walked forwards, and when he saw all those people in the distance, he was surprised and smiled. Holy Emperor, you're too polite. Haha, Lin Feng, time passes and you've become so strong. No wonder you finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, said Holy Emperor Ling, smiling in welcome. Lin Feng's chi was only dimly discernible. They couldn't see what his cultivation level was. He also talked in a different way. He sounded like a wise scholar. 20 years had passed, and Lin Feng had already changed so much. What would he be like 50 years from now? Lin Feng smiled naturally and said, Holy Emperor, you've been taking good care of Qiongsheng for 20 years. We are infinitely grateful. How is our son? I'll call him. Let's go to the main hall first, said Holy Emperor Ling, smiling. No need, we'll go to him, said Lin Feng, shaking his head. Holy Emperor Ling looked at Tang Yuyu and nodded. They started walking towards Lin Qiongsheng's palace, but then learned that he wasn't there. I forgot, there's a small meeting in Wuxia. All the holy princes and princesses are meeting there, said Holy Emperor Ling suddenly. I'll go to Wuxia then. All right, we'll come with you, said Holy Emperor Ling happily. They all left together. There was a dimly discernible celestial qi in Wuxia. Many people were there, because some extraordinary young people were present. Qing Jiangshan is terrifyingly strong. He understands sky oppressing Tao. He has inherited it from his ancestors. On top of that, he knows some extremely rare soul-destroying techniques. The holy woman of the ancient Jade dynasty is also extremely strong. Her deep abstruse Tao is powerful. Tianju Gong, all the geniuses of the universities are also strong. Don't forget Lin Qiongsheng, he's Lin Feng's son. He's terrifyingly talented and understands absorbing Tao. He can absorb incredible quantities of strength, and he's extremely strong. Everybody was talking and looking at the bunch of talented and extraordinary young people. At that moment, Qing Jiangshan said, Lin Qiongsheng, I've heard that your absorbing Tao has already reached the first level. When do you intend to kill me and absorb my strength? Lin Qiongsheng grunted coldly and replied to Qing Jiangshan, We'll see when you offend me. How arrogant, said Qing Jiangshan icily. Back then, your father dragged out an ignoble existence. He drifted and lived without purpose, and he used to hide in the Holy Spirit dynasty. He stole the saint of our dynasty, the Qin dynasty. Then, he finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. Who do you think you are? We don't even know if Lin Feng is really your father. The Holy Dynasty prince of the Great Desert dynasty laughed and whispered. Indeed, back then, Lin Feng hadn't even been to the Holy Spirit dynasty, but his mother was there already. Lin Qiongsheng was furious and felt humiliated. He was about to burst out. 2 insolent little boys, said a loud voice at that moment. It was Holy Emperor Ling. He had heard them, he was furious. They're trying to infuriate Qiongsheng on purpose, I don't know why, said Lin Feng calmly. He had evolved a lot. He didn't get angry anymore when people tried to humiliate him. Actually, he just killed them instantly. He didn't let anyone influence his emotions anymore. But he still wanted to see what those people intended to do. Young people compete occasionally, it's normal. But usually they don't go too far. They want to see how strong Qiongsheng is, said Holy Emperor Ling. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Qiongsheng said icily. All shitty cultivators know is how to hurt people by insulting them. You too come here. Qing Jiangshan frowned and glanced at Qiongsheng icily. Then he released qi in a surge of power. At the same time, Lin Feng frowned. Holy Emperor Ling and Lin Feng glanced at each other. Someone is coming, said Lin Feng to Holy Emperor Ling telepathically. Yes, many people, and one of them is as strong as me if not stronger, said Holy Emperor Ling, looking solemn and grave. Yes, very strong, said Lin Feng nodding. He changed his face, surprising the Holy Emperor Ling. Some people arrived and noticed them. They inspected the area with their godly awareness for a few seconds, and then recalled it. Hey, said someone. Holy Emperor Ling frowned. The Holy Emperor of the Qin dynasty was there too, but he didn't seem to notice them. However, why had such strong cultivators come? This was a competition between young people. Lin Feng looked at Lin Qiongsheng. He was fighting already. Something abnormal was going on. Many people from other dynasties are here, and they're extremely strong. There are many great emperors and celestial emperors. I think they came here because of Qiongsheng. If they didn't want to do something dodgy, they wouldn't need so many strong cultivators, said Holy Emperor Ling. He finally sensed danger. What was going? Chapter 2273. Who? At that moment, the Holy Emperor of the Qin dynasty was standing next to a middle-aged man who looked simple. However, his eyes were filled with flames. He gazed into the distance. The young man who's fighting against Qing Jiangshan is Lin Qiongsheng. The Holy Emperor of the Qin dynasty pointed at Lin Qiongsheng. The middle-aged man nodded and said calmly, Don't kill him, we want him alive. I understand, nodded Holy Emperor Qin. Even though the two of them were whispering, they didn't try to be discreet. Therefore, Lin Feng and Holy Emperor Ling heard them. Their eyes twinkled and they frowned. That person wanted to capture Lin Qiongsheng? He also didn't fear them. Holy Emperor Qin knew that Holy Emperor Ling was there, but he didn't care. What is that supposed to mean? Said Holy Emperor Ling icily. Holy Emperor Qin just smiled coldly. He had said that on purpose. By doing so he was saying that even if the members of the Holy Spirit dynasty were there, they couldn't do anything. She's here, thought Holy Emperor Qin when he saw Tang Yuyu. He was smiling icily on the inside. Lin Feng might be here too. The younger people were still fighting. Lin Qiongsheng was fighting against two Holy Dynasty princes, and he had the advantage. Qing Jiangshan was stronger than Lin Qiongsheng back then at the same age. However, Lin Qiongsheng, at the same level, was peerless. He had several spirit strengths. His fighting abilities were incredible, and his absorbing Tao was terrifying. The battle was incredible and fierce. Lin Qiongsheng was fighting against two very strong cultivators. Back then, Lin Qiongsheng's father fought against 8 geniuses alone. When the father is a lion, the son cannot be a lamb. Lin Qiongsheng is extremely strong as expected, said someone at that moment. It was a strong cultivator of the ancient Jade dynasty. Many people looked at him strangely, but then he said, Therefore don't be merciful. Stop watching, and let's see how powerful Lin Qiongsheng can really be. How cruel. They want to encircle Lin Qiongsheng, thought everybody frowning. The ancient Jade dynasty's holy woman immediately attacked, and the holy dynasty prince followed. Lin Qiongsheng shouted furiously. A dragon appeared, and absorbed everything they threw out. He looked at them icily. His chi surged up and swept their attacks away. He was furious. These people were bastards, all holy dynasty princes and princesses. They were all geniuses. And they dared surround him? Lin Feng flickered and left. Holy Emperor Ling's eyes twinkled, but he didn't ask anything. Lin Feng probably had a plan. After a short time, Lin Feng reappeared in the crowd, but this time he had a different face. His qi was the qi of the Huang qi layer. He slowly rose up into the air and watched the battle, where 7 people were fighting against Lin Qiongsheng. They were all extremely strong. Lin Qiongsheng was different from him back in the days. Back then, Lin Feng's death Dao was incredible, and he knew several saints' techniques. That was why back then, he had dared take a risk. Now Lin Qiongsheng was strong, but it wasn't enough. But Lin Feng didn't attack immediately. He first watched Lin Qiongsheng fight. The battle was difficult and Lin Qiongsheng was struggling. But Lin Feng was happy, because the most difficult and dangerous situations were the most beneficial ones as well. They made cultivators stronger. As expected, Lin Qiongsheng was going crazy. His attacks were fiercer and fiercer, and the people around moved back. After being punched twice, Lin Qiongsheng punched 2 other people and hurled them away, blood splashing. Together, said Qing Jiangshan mercilessly. The 7 cultivators encircled him again. The pressure was terrifying. Finally, Lin Feng slowly walked forwards. Back then, when he was surrounded by 8 people, it had been scary. And now his son was in a similar situation. Blood called for blood. The dynasties are really imposing and awe-inspiring, said Lin Feng pitilessly. The Holy Dynasty Prince of the Great Desert Dynasty grunted icily. He looked at Lin Feng and shouted, "Piss off." He punched out in Lin Feng's direction. Lin Feng raised his hand. There was a rumble as he destroyed the enemy's attack. He charged the Holy Dynasty Prince of the Great Desert Dynasty. The strong cultivators of the Great Desert Dynasty were startled. Lin Feng turned into a beam of light and threw himself at their Holy Dynasty Prince. The Great Desert Dynasty's Holy Dynasty Prince was driven asunder. He turned into a bunch of hanging flesh and blood. His soul dispersed. He hadn't even had time to scream. "No!" shouted the strong cultivators of the Great Desert Dynasty. Nobody thought someone would dare kill their Holy Dynasty Prince directly. Their faces twisted. People around were astonished. That guy had killed him instantly. A Holy Dynasty Prince had just been killed instantly. The other Holy Dynasty Princes suddenly stopped moving and stared at Lin Feng. They couldn't believe their eyes. The Great Desert Dynasty's Holy Dynasty Prince who was fighting on their side before had just been torn apart. That made everybody tremble. Lin Feng then jumped, stretched out his hand and grabbed Qing Jiangshan. Qing Jiangshan shouted in fear. He wanted to fight, but Lin Feng didn't give him any opportunity. "Stop!" shouted Holy Emperor Qin explosively. He descended from the sky and stared at Lin Feng. "You'll die if you dare touch him," said Holy Emperor Qin icily. However, Lin Feng raised his head and said, "Why are 7 strong cultivators fighting against Lin Qiongsheng today?" "It's normal, they're just here to exchange views on cultivation," said Holy Emperor Qin icily. "Ah!" Qing Jiangshan screamed. One of his arms was broken. A bone was sticking out and blood dripping down. The crowd was trembling. Who was this guy? He was crazy. Lin Qiongsheng looked at Lin Feng in astonishment. Who was that guy, and why was he helping him? "I'll give you one more opportunity. If you lie, I'll kill him," stated Lin Feng icily. The ancient Jade Dynasty's holy princess rose up in the air, trying to leave. "Die," said Lin Feng. He released Death Dao strength towards her, and killed her instantly. The strong cultivators of the ancient Jade Dynasty were trembling, their faces pale. Lin Feng used a special qi which surrounded Lin Qiongsheng and protected him. He glanced at the crowd and said remorselessly, "If anyone dares move, I'll kill them." The crowd had just seen the holy princess die, so nobody dared move. They were all staring at Lin Feng. Who was he? Holy Emperor Qin was staring at Lin Feng with murder in his eyes. He wanted to kill Lin Feng, but he didn't want Qin Jiangshan to die. "You have only one opportunity," said Lin Feng grimly like a demon. "If you don't tell me why, I'll give the other dynasties an opportunity." At that moment, the middle-aged man who had come with Holy Emperor Qin spoke up. "Because of me." Lin Feng slowly turned to him. Holy Emperor Ling didn't know him. Why did he want to capture Qiongsheng? "Release him," said that person. Flames were burning in his eyes. Lin Feng sensed a scorching hot energy. "Why do you want to capture Qiongsheng? Are there tensions between him and you?" asked Lin Feng icily. "You want to die," that person said to Lin Feng arrogantly. Lin Feng looked back at Holy Emperor Qin and said, "He doesn't care whether your Holy Dynasty prince dies or not, so answer my question. You have only one chance." Holy Emperor Qin's face stiffened. His mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. Even if Qing Jiangshan's life was in Lin Feng's hands, he couldn't tell the truth. Qing Jiangshan screamed. His other arm exploded into pieces of flesh. Lin Feng was staring at him and continued, "And you can't remain silent. You will die here," said Holy Emperor Qin. He didn't feel relaxed. Lin Feng suddenly realized something. He didn't dare talk even though Qin Jiangshan's life was in his hands. He was too terrified. Just who was that middle-aged man? Lin Feng knew that Holy Emperor Qin didn't dare talk. Then, he released death intent which surrounded the Holy Dynasty prince of the Tianxi dynasty. Lin Feng said in a cold and detached way, "Who will tell me the truth?" The strong cultivators of the Tianxi dynasty looked petrified as well. Qi surged towards Lin Feng, but he said nothing. Lin Feng understood. Therefore he burst into laughter. He knew the answer now. They don't dare talk. "Tell me the truth, I already know it though," Lin Feng said to Qing Jiangshan. "If you don't tell me the truth, I'll kill you instantly. Tell me the truth. Maybe that he won't do anything to you because of his position." Qing Jiangshan's face was chalk pale. He was the Holy Dynasty prince of the Qin dynasty. He knew who the middle-aged man was. "I don't want to kill you, you're boring, hurry up," prodded Lin Feng calmly. He knew the answer so he was unmoved. "He's from a paramount place," said Qing Jiangshan, closing his eyes. The middle-aged man frowned, but then he heard Lin Feng say, "Be clear. Which shrine?" When Lin Feng said that, everyone trembled. Shrine. Chapter 2274. Pretending what Lin Feng said made the whole crowd tremble. That person was from a shrine, and he dared act that arrogantly? Qing Jiangshan grimaced in pain and said, "Fire shrine." The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with fire and he frowned. Indeed, he was from the fire shrine. After what had happened in Purple Clouds, the shrines were convinced that there was a forbidden person. As a result, everybody knew about it. They wanted to kill the 10 top cultivators of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. So all the shrines had agreed on focusing on one person each. The fire shrine was in charge of killing Lin Feng. However, they could see that Lin Feng lived in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds all the time. He was hiding in the fortune shrine all the time. But they understood it was a cover-up. How could Lin Feng, who had ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, still be a cultivator of the Huangqi layer? It had to be a clone. However, the fire shrine didn't know where Lin Feng was. They just knew that he was from dark clouds, and that before the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, he was in Qi Tian Holy Town. They also knew that he was the Holy Dynasty prince of the Holy Spirit dynasty. They had come to Qi Tian Holy Town, and had confirmed from the other dynasties that he was from there, indeed. They also learned that Lin Feng had a child called Lin Xiongsheng, and that he was the current Holy Spirit dynasty prince. Accordingly, the person in charge of killing Lin Feng had thought of a solution. Make some dynasties capture Lin Xiongsheng. That way, the Holy Spirit dynasty would contact Lin Feng, and he would show up. However, the Fire Shrine's strong cultivator hadn't expected that someone would protect Lin Xiongsheng. This person was audacious and arrogant, and he knew about the shrines. Killing a disciple of the Fortune Shrine by surprise wasn't something very glorious, and using Lin Feng's son was even less glorious. Therefore, the Fire Shrine didn't want anyone to know about it. It was really bad for their reputation. Back then, during the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, the 9 shrines attacked the winners by surprise. They wanted to kill the top 10 cultivators, 10 geniuses, but they were also new disciples of the Fortune Shrine. However, they failed. Now they still want to kill them. The Fire Shrine sent people to capture Lin Xiongsheng, to attract the champion of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, Lin Feng, because he's his father. They wanted Lin Feng to appear, and then they would have killed him, said Lin Feng calmly. He didn't use the word forbidden person, of course. The shrines didn't know who had a forbidden body yet. They just listened to orders. The shrine's supreme and paramount organizations, To kill Lin Feng, they dared try to capture his family, his son. How glorious! How ridiculous, I want to say, said Lin Feng sarcastically. The fire shrine is really great. The fire shrine's strong cultivator pulled a long face. He was staring at Lin Feng and demanded, "Who are you?" Apart from the people who were directly involved, nobody could know those things. Now the fire shrine was losing face. "Who do you think I am?" asked Lin Feng, smiling. He released some fortune lights. He had studied many scriptures in the fortune shrine, studied many spells and ancient scriptures. Coupled with evolution strength, he could easily modify and create new sorts of strengths. "You're from the fortune shrine." The fire shrine's strong cultivator was stupefied. "Humph. You're from the fortune shrine. And you dared pretend to be an emperor to attack and kill emperors. They all want to help you kill my disciple. Could the fortune shrine accept that?" spat Lin Feng. Qi began to hum wildly around him. It contained death strength and fortune lights. Lin Feng looked at the members of the other dynasties. All those strong cultivators were shaking. They had offended the fortune shrine. Were they going to die? They realized they shouldn't have gotten involved. Lin Feng had changed. He was backed up by the fortune shrine. He was a core disciple of the fortune shrine now. "Piss off now. If you dare attack disciples of the fortune shrine ever again, I guarantee you I'll destroy all the dynasties," said Lin Feng, sounding like a demon. The strong cultivators of the dynasties turned pale. They glanced between the strong cultivator of the fire shrine, and then at Lin Feng. And in the end they left. Nobody would dare ask for an explanation or mention their revenge. Some of their people had been killed by a member of the fortune shrine. What could they do? Nothing. They had lost people for nothing. Lin Feng looked at the strong cultivator of the fire shrine and said calmly, "You wanted to hurt my disciple's son to capture him. Are you not afraid? The fortune shrine can also kill your disciple's family members," said Lin Feng, which made his opposite tremble. At such cultivation levels, family members normally wouldn't get involved anymore. "You want to kill Lin Feng? Go and kill him. But we can guarantee that if you kill our disciples, we'll kill twice as many of your disciples. And after what happened today, you actually shouldn't do anything. You're a disgrace as a shrine. You don't even deserve to be a shrine," said Lin Feng calmly. He really sounded like a strong and high-ranking cultivator of the fortune shrine. "See you," he finished. He took Lin Xiongsheng with him and left. Holy Emperor Ling and Tang Yuyu left with him. Holy Emperor Ling was privately astonished. Lin Feng was extremely strong, but he could even oppress such people. He could even pretend he was a terrifying cultivator from the fortune shrine. The fire shrine's strong cultivator had trembled with fear. Lin Feng had deceived him. That was incredible. But what had happened on that day also made Lin Feng understand that the shrines weren't going to give up. They truly wanted to kill the forbidden person. They had even sent people to Qi Tian Holy Town for him. They even wanted to capture Lin Xiongsheng. He was furious. Those people, who were terrifyingly strong, were ready to do anything to achieve their goals. Lin Feng and the others returned to the Holy Spirit dynasty. Lin Xiongsheng looked at Lin Feng, his eyes twinkling, and he said, "You're extremely strong. Are you really from the fortune shrine? Or did my father send you?" At that moment, some people arrived in the distance. Tang Yuyu, Holy Emperor Ling. When Lin Xiongsheng saw Tang Yuyu, he was astonished. "She was mother?" asked Lin Xiongsheng. Tang Yuyu nodded. She walked up to him and caressed his head, smiling. "Xiongsheng, you're a grown-up now." "Mother," said Lin Xiongsheng, smiling happily. He had never been with his parents. It felt good, it felt warm. He smiled broadly. "Mother, what about my father? How is he doing? Why does the fire shrine want to kill him?" Lin Xiongsheng asked Tang Yuyu. "He's good. And it's a long story," replied Tang Yuyu, glancing at Lin Feng and nodding. "Humph. No matter what their reason is, someday, I'll go to the fortune shrine and settle accounts with them," said Lin Xiongsheng icily. "The shrines are among the most powerful groups of influence in this world. Do you think you'll ever be that strong?" asked Lin Feng, smiling at Lin Xiongsheng. "Of course, I am as talented as my parents. I can't be weaker." "Master, do you think the fortune shrine could recruit me as a disciple? My father ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. I can't be much weaker, said Lin Xiongsheng to Lin Feng, smiling fatuously. Lin Feng burst into laughter. Tang Yu said, silly boy, he's your father. What? Xiongsheng was astonished. He looked at Lin Feng and shook his head. You're lying, he's not. I've seen many images of my father. He doesn't look like that. And like this, said Lin Feng, taking off his mask and showing his true face. He smiled at Xiongsheng. Xiongsheng frowned and remained silent. He scratched his head and finally shouted, You're really my old daddy. Am I old? Said Lin Feng, rolling his eyes. Tang Yu and Lin Feng glanced at each other, and they both burst into laughter. Xiongsheng, I hope you're not sad that your mother and me have not been able to stay on your side to take care of you. No. My master told me that the cultivation world was very cruel. He told me how people bullied you, how you finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. You did all you could for me and for yourself, for us to become strong. I could never blame my parents. In the future, I want to be like my father. I want people to admire me, replied Lin Xiongsheng solemnly. Lin Feng clapped Lin Xiongsheng's shoulder and said, Glad to hear that, but now you can't stay here. Times are difficult, and people will find me sooner or later. From today, go and travel the world. When Holy Emperor Ling tells you can come back, then come back. Lin Feng, said Tang Yu astonished. Yu, he must go through such things to become a strong cultivator, said Lin Feng. Many difficulties awaited Lin Xiongsheng, and making him travel was a good solution to protect him, too. All right, I will do that, agreed Lin Xiongsheng. He knelt down and said to Lin Feng and Tang Yu, I'll do my best to be the best child ever. Lin Xiongsheng stood back up and looked at Holy Emperor Ling. He bowed, turned around and left. Tang Yu waved after him. She didn't want to let her baby go and travel alone. Lin Feng felt the same, but that was how the world worked. The best thing was to be strong and travel. If Lin Feng hadn't appeared on that day, Lin Xiongsheng would have been in great danger. Holy Emperor, even if the Fire Shrine wants to attack the dynasties now, they can't. Tell all the dynasties that if anyone dares do anything against the Holy Spirit dynasty, they will die, said Lin Feng to Holy Emperor Ling evenly. Holy Emperor Ling nodded. As long as Lin Feng was alive, nobody would dare attack the Holy Spirit dynasty. Chapter 2275. Void Phoenix Clan. The Qi was almost endless in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, a world which stood higher than the continent of the 9 clouds. There were ancient palaces and strong cultivators everywhere. It was a dangerous place. Lin Feng and Yin Di were walking in the court. Lin Feng looked at the sky, sometimes seeing some great emperors seated on clouds. Great emperors were normal and common in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Old buddy, I talked to the diviner. Let's head to Fortune Castle, Lin Feng said to Yin Di. Yin Di nodded and took a deep breath. Even though he had studied many ancient scriptures, it was too difficult for him to become as strong as he was in his previous life. He had come back to life, and because of it he had limits. Maybe the Fortune Shrine could change his destiny. Lin Feng's clone had been in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds the whole time. Therefore, Lin Feng was very familiar with the region. They both flew quickly. After a short time, they landed before a celestial palace, Fortune Castle. No wonder they're at the top of the world. This palace is terrifying, and it towers aloft, said Yin Di, glancing around. The Fortune Shrine's territory was incredible and seemed boundless. Have you ever been in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds? Asked Lin Feng to Yin Di. He was curious. Of course, back then when I was in the Celestial Evolution Holy Clan, I traveled everywhere with my father, said Yin Di easily. Lin Feng was startled. The Celestial Evolution Holy Clan must have been terrifyingly powerful then, with many incredibly strong cultivators. But he didn't press. After entering Fortune Castle, they climbed up a gigantic flight of stairs. A righteous old man arrived. He smiled at Lin Feng warmly. Lin Feng had broken free from the Huang Qi layer. Even if he had a forbidden body, he now had no real cultivation level. He looked like someone who had no cultivation level at all. He was different from everyone else. Greetings, master, said Yendi to the diviner, bowing deeply. Even though he had lived for 1,000 years, the diviner was even older, at least 10,000 years old. In front of the diviner, Yendi was like a child, so he had to call him master. "Hello, little boy, you're growing up quickly," said the diviner, smiling at Yendi. Back then, when Yendi was always with Lin Feng, he had the same level as him and the others. Now he was a celestial emperor, and on top of that, he had relied on himself to break through to the Tiandi layer. That wasn't easy at all, but was also due to the ancient scriptures he had studied. When Yendi heard the diviner call him little boy, he didn't mind, and even smiled. "Come with me," the diviner said to Yendi. Lin Feng and Yendi glanced at each other, and Yendi followed the diviner. Lin Feng turned around and descended from the castle. He didn't want to stay in the Fortune Shrine area for too long. The Fortune Shrine was in Fortune City. There were many buildings here, and the place was gigantic. There were many residences in Fortune Country. It was a gigantic territory, but Lin Feng didn't travel in the Fortune Country he left. In the northwest area, there was no shrine. However, it was much vaster than Fortune Country. There were many other influential groups in the northwest area. They couldn't be compared with the influential groups of the continent of the Nine Clouds. Many of these groups of influence had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, and some of them had even existed since the very beginning of the ancient days. Many of them had people who were about to become saints, or sages as they were also called. The strongest ones had saints. In the continent of the Nine Clouds, there were many ancient holy clans who came from the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds. They had saint emperors, that's why they called themselves ancient holy clans. Actually, it was wrong. In the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds, if they had dared call themselves ancient holy clans, they would have been destroyed instantly. Strong cultivators from the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds found them ridiculous and made fun of them when they traveled in the continent of the Nine Clouds. In the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds, clans who had saints were considered powerful. They called themselves holy sage ruler clans. In their case, the holy was actual truth. They had real saints, genuinely holy cultivators, unlike ancient holy clans who only had saint emperors, and who only had holy saints in the distant past. In the case of holy sage ruler clans, they really had saints or sages, who were holy cultivators, truly peerless cultivators. The Void Phoenix clan was a holy sage ruler clan. They had at least one saint. They were in the northwest area, and were extremely strong. People who were raised in the Void Phoenix clan were considered apex geniuses in that part of the world, like geniuses who came from ancient holy clans in the continent of the Nine Clouds. A young man appeared outside of the Void Phoenix clan in the northwest area. His chi was dimly discernible. He was surrounded by an empty and invisible strength, as if he could disappear anytime. The young man's empty space strength was extremely powerful. He could control a type of Tao related to empty space. His hands were clasped behind him. He looked indifferent and composed, calm and aloof. However, one could sense he was strong, especially since he was standing at the gate of the Void Phoenix clan. The guards of the Void Phoenix clan sensed that his chi was extraordinary. They informed some people of his coming, and a short time later, a young man wearing a fire cape slowly came out. His hair was pitch black, and he was wearing fire armor, looking quite heroic. His eyes were filled with flames. He was staring at Lin Feng and asked, "Your Excellency, how may the Void Phoenix clan help you?" "I'm looking for Jing," said Lin Feng. He turned around and looked at the young man calmly. The young man smiled at Lin Feng and said, "First question." That was the Void Phoenix clan. Not anyone could see Jing. He needed to tell him who he was first. "I come from Dark Clouds, vast celestial ancient city, animal world," said Lin Feng calmly. His questioner was surprised. Someone from the animal world in the vast celestial ancient city? He had heard of that place. But someone from the lower world daring to come to their clan and stand at their gate talking this way, that was rare. "Jing doesn't receive people from abroad," said the young man to Lin Feng calmly. Lin Feng suddenly turned around and gazed into the distance. A terrifying strength emerged and surrounded the young man. A golden cage imprisoned him. The young man frowned and looked at Lin Feng icily. He condensed fire in his fist and punched the cage, but the cage didn't break at all. He was still trapped inside. He grimaced. Lin Feng had imprisoned him, a great emperor, instantly. I came from very, very far. Why refuse people who come from so far? Said Lin Feng calmly. Bring me to Jing, okay? The young man was stuck in the cage and felt humiliated. All right, I'll take you there, said the young man. Instantly, Lin Feng made the cage disappear. Follow me, said the young man. He turned around and took Lin Feng inside. It was like a gigantic castle inside. Lin Feng whispered. Don't take me to some strong cultivators. I'm here as a guest and I don't want to cause trouble. If you do anything dodgy, I can kill you in the blink of an eye. The young man's face stiffened. He had really intended to do that. However, Lin Feng was threatening him, and he was really strong. The young man took Lin Feng to a palace and said to Lin Feng, That's Miss Jing's residence, but I can't go in. Lin Feng nodded and said, Jing. His voice resonated far away. Jing was in her palace. She opened her eyes and her eyes twinkled. Who dared act that arrogantly? Her silhouette flickered, and she landed in front of Lin Feng and the young man. Who is he? Asked Jing to the young man. Miss Jing. He said he comes from the vast celestial ancient city, said the young man. Jing frowned and stared at Lin Feng. Let's talk inside, said Lin Feng. Jing nodded and said to the young man, You may leave. The young man turned around and left. Lin Feng knew that the young man was probably going to look for some stronger cultivators. But it didn't matter. Jing had a high social position, so he didn't need to worry. Jing said, I don't know you. Are you really from the vast celestial ancient city? It's me, Lin Feng. Lin Feng said to Jing telepathically. Jing was stupefied. She suddenly turned around. How audacious. How is Qing Feng? Asked Lin Feng calmly. Jing was stupefied. He really was Lin Feng. The shrines are all looking for you. They want to kill you, said Jing telepathically. I know, so call me Feng Ling now, replied Lin Feng. Lin Feng's disguise was incredible. She nodded. That way, nobody would recognize him. Chapter 2276. Delicate Relations. Jing took Lin Feng to a bamboo forest by a lake, a place where she relaxed. It was beautiful, there was nature, and energies didn't propagate easily there. Unless someone shouted extremely loudly, nobody could overhear what was said there. How is Qing Feng? Asked Lin Feng. The old man of the animal world and Lin Feng had had a long conversation. He wanted Lin Feng to take care of her. She's here in the Void Phoenix clan, but she has a special social status here, so she feels awkward, said Jing. My mother loves Qing Feng very much. However, my father doesn't like seeing her next to our mother. There are some internal problems in the Void Phoenix clan. Qing Feng's position is delicate, but she's a saint's disciple, so nobody dares do anything to her. Lin Feng nodded. Qing Feng was Saint Shizhu Lao Xian's disciple. If Shizhu Lao Xian was there, even a holy sage ruler clan couldn't do much to her. Since it's that way, let Qing Feng leave the Void Phoenix clan. Why does she need to stay here? Asked Lin Feng. Why doesn't she leave? Her blood strength can improve in the Void Phoenix clan. If the Void Phoenix clan acknowledges her, she could become an incredibly godly phoenix. She could turn into an ancient phoenix and have an immortal body. Even though Shizhu Lao Xian is a saint, he can't help Qing Feng with that. It's why our mother wanted her to come back. The most important reason. If she stayed with her father, her perspectives would be limited too, said Jing. So why can't the Void Phoenix clan acknowledge her now? Asked Lin Feng, frowning. My father was tolerant of my mother in the past. He even joined the Void Phoenix clan. It was a big sacrifice. The Void Phoenix clan owes a lot to my father. After all, he is a genius, and in the Northwest area, he's always been considered as such. Now he's a member of the Fire Shrine, and a half-saint. He'll definitely become a real saint at some point. You can imagine his social position within the Void Phoenix clan, said Jing slowly. Lin Feng was perplexed. Such an incredible genius joined the Void Phoenix clan. That was indeed a sacrifice, and quite beneficial for the Void Phoenix clan. Fire Shrine, thought Lin Feng glumly. He said to Jing, So what do you think? Are you on your mother's side, or your father's side? I'm Feng's sister. I wish the best for her. And I don't care about the elders' stories, said Jing. All right, said Lin Feng, nodding. Jing didn't care. She hoped Feng would be fine. And you? Why did you come here? Asked Jing to Lin Feng coldly. I came to see how Qing Feng was doing. I'm worried about her, said Lin Feng calmly. You're worried? Don't try to take me with you, said Jing icily. Lin Feng laughed and said, Women are beautiful when they smile. When I was a cauldron, you looked even more beautiful. Lin Feng, don't think I won't dare attack you because of Feng, Jing said with murder in her eyes. You think you can do anything to me? Lin Feng smiled. Jing was surprised. Indeed, this guy had ranked first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. So many years had passed, and she couldn't see his cultivation level anymore. How strong was he now? How strong are you now? Asked Jing, curious. Try and you'll see, said Lin Feng calmly. Jing released a terrifying energy which filled the air. An ice-cold sword appeared. White light streaked across the sky. She didn't hold back. That sword sliced straight towards Lin Feng's neck. And it also contained her most terrifying fire energies. Lin Feng stretched out his hand and grabbed the incoming sword without anything happening to him. Jing was astonished and groaned icily. This guy had become too strong. Break, said Lin Feng. Instantly, clear and melodious breaking sounds spread in the air. The ice-cold fire sword broke apart and turned to ashes. Jing lowered her eyes and looked at the pieces of sword on the ground. She was shaking. How astonishing. There was such a big difference between them. She hadn't stopped practicing cultivation during the last 10 years. She was now at the top of the Diqi layer. She could easily kill ordinary celestial emperors. But in front of Lin Feng, she felt so weak. Then Jing laughed and said, I have a way. What? Said Lin Feng, looking at Jing. Since you came here, and your fighting abilities are so incredible, if you talk about love with Qing Feng, thanks to you, her social status could rise, said Jing suddenly. Lin Feng said, the Void Phoenix clan is a holy sage ruler clan. There are many strong cultivators. Even though I'm a strong cultivator, I can't help Qing Feng rise up in the hierarchy of the group. Holy sage ruler clans, such as the Void Phoenix clan, don't really attach importance to anyone except saints. And people who have the potential to become saints. They don't care about anyone else. Therefore, my father's position is really high. And you have the potential to become a saint. If you prove it, things would be different, said Jing slowly. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, for holy sage ruler clans, saints were important, or people who were about to become saints. Saint emperors were also very useful to them. Clans, sects, and all other powerful groups in the world weren't interested in average strength. They were interested in being the strongest. A saint could destroy a whole group of saint emperors instantly. All right, take me to Qing Feng now, said Lin Feng. Jing nodded. They both left the bamboo forest and left her residence. As soon as they left the residence, they bumped into a group of strong cultivators who were waiting for them. Among them was the young man who had just taken Lin Feng there. Leave now, there's nothing to see, said Jing indifferently. However, those people's silhouettes flickered. The leader of the group was a young man, staring at Lin Feng icily. His chi was in a chaotic state and surged towards Lin Feng. Ao Feng, how insolent. I told you to leave, said Jing icily. It's the Void Phoenix clan here. Strangers can't come in and out as they wish. Who is he? Asked Ao Feng, staring coldly at Lin Feng. Piss off, said Jing icily. Ao Feng's face stiffened, but he looked at Jing and said, Miss Jing, come to see the elder. He broke through to the Tiandi layer 7 days ago. He controls 9 abstruse flame strength. I hope you understand what it means. Then, Ao Feng turned around and left with the crowd. Lin Feng was stupefied and asked, Hua Xingzi is the young man who appeared at the end of the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds last time? From the fire shrine. That's him. He's extremely strong, extremely talented. He used the 9 celestial abstruse flame shrine deployment spell to break through to the Diqi layer. His teacher and my father are of the same lineage. They were fellow disciples, so they hope I will marry him, said Jing icily. The Void Phoenix clan must be happy about that. whispered Lin Feng. Jing glanced at him coldly. Of course the Void Phoenix clan was happy about it. It would help them develop an even deeper relation with the Fire Shrine. Shrines were paramount groups in the world. Jing brought Lin Feng to another palace. Qing Feng was inside. When she saw Lin Feng, she didn't recognize him. He had changed his face and she. Qing Feng, it's me, said Lin Feng, changing his face. Qing Feng began to blurt out Lin dash. Shush. Lin Feng immediately put his hand on her mouth. Qing Feng was stupefied. She nodded, but looked alarmed. Are you about to go to the Snow Clan? Qing Feng asked Lin Feng. The 20-year period was almost over. Saint Shiju Lao Xian and Lin Feng had an agreement. Yes, said Lin Feng nodded. All right, I'll inform him that you're here already, said Qing Feng. Lin Feng shook his head. I've already informed him. I came here for you. For me? Qing Feng's eyes twinkled. Yes, your father wants me to take care of you. So I have to take good care of you. Lin Feng grinned. Her cheeks became hot. She looked at Lin Feng. What was wrong with him? I can take care of myself, whispered Qing Feng. But she looked and sounded too cute. Don't be stubborn, said Jing, rolling her eyes. Didn't you decide to come to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds for this guy? Now he's here for you. And he came from far away. Who said that? Qing Feng blushed. Lin Feng laughed. You don't want me to take care of you? Qing Feng looked at Lin Feng. She had beautiful eyes. Her ears burned. You. At that moment, Qing Feng looked like a little innocent girl. Lin Feng and Jing smiled widely. She had always felt that way, but she had always refused to say anything. Chapter 2277. Fighting in another palace in the Void Phoenix clan. There were 2 people sitting in a pavilion at the foot of a mountain. They were chatting. At that moment, someone arrived and bowed to one of them, a middle-aged man. There's no stranger here, talk, said the middle-aged man softly. He didn't look arrogant at all. Sir, today a young man came to see Miss Jing. They looked very close to each other. And after that, they went to Miss Qing Feng's residence together, said the messenger. The middle-aged man looked surprised. He glanced at the young man next to him and said, All right, you can leave. Sir. That person bowed and left. The middle-aged man looked at the person next to him and smiled. That little girl likes to worry me. Uncle Jing has friends, it's normal. The young man smiled. But she brought him to Qing Feng. I don't know why, wondered the middle-aged man calmly. The young man smiled again. Uncle, I can check with her. Good idea. She doesn't listen to me, so that's a good idea. She doesn't care about making me sad, said the middle-aged man, shaking his head. I am sure she will listen to you regarding the wedding. Besides, my teacher and I have talked about Qing Feng. Among my fellow disciples, there are some extremely strong ones who could be good for Qing Feng. That way, she'll move to the Fire Shrine and have a better home, the young man offered. The middle-aged man muttered to himself irresolutely, and then nodded. All right, actually it's a good idea. She'd be happy in the Fire Shrine. It'd be a good home. Her mother will be fine with that too, I guess. Glad to hear you say that, uncle. I will go back and inform my teacher. The young man smiled. The middle-aged man nodded and saw him off. Lin Feng hadn't expected such a thing to happen. Besides, the relations he had with the Fire Shrine were getting more and more complex. At that moment, he was with Jing and Qing Feng. They were taking a walk on a big road of the Void Phoenix clan. They were on their way to go and see the girl's mother. Lin Feng sensed that some people were looking at him in a hostile way in the distance. He raised his eyes and gazed back. He saw someone he had seen before. Of course, that person had become much stronger. Hua Xingzi. Back then, he was among the 10 strong young people of the shrines, who had attacked them at the end of the meeting of the continent, from the Fire Shrine. He was at the top of the Huang Qi layer back then. Now he was a celestial emperor. His qi was impressive. When Hua Xingzi saw Jing, he smiled and said, Jing, which bloodline is he from in the Void Phoenix clan? He's not from the Void Phoenix clan, he's my friend, replied Jing icily. She didn't like Hua Xingzi at all. I see. I'm Hua Xingzi from the Fire Shrine, said Hua Xingzi, nodding at Lin Feng. I practice cultivation in the countryside, I am a nobody therefore. I feel ashamed to introduce myself in front of such an incredible cultivator as you. You're a genius from the fire shrine, said Lin Feng calmly. Hua Xingzi's eyes glittered strangely. He smiled and said, You're too polite, Your Excellency. You're Jing's friend. How could you practice cultivation in the countryside? Besides, don't feel ashamed. I can't even see your cultivation level. You must be extremely strong. I wonder whether the godly fire vision could detect your cultivation level. The godly fire vision was a terrifying power the fire shrine had. When Jing heard him, she frowned. Did he mean he wanted to try the godly fire vision on Lin Feng? Many people had suddenly arrived and gathered around them. They were all from the Void Phoenix clan. When they saw Hua Xingzi from the fire shrine was provoking a young man, they got excited. Hua Xingzi wanted to propose a marriage alliance and get married to Jing. His purpose wasn't pure and innocent. Apart from obtaining Jing, he also cast greedy eyes on the Void Phoenix clan's phoenix blood. People from the Fortune Shrine loved all sorts of fire strength. For the Void Phoenix clan, there were advantages, too. Being able to deepen their relationship with the Fire Shrine would enable them to become even more powerful. But at that moment, Jing was standing with a stranger, a young man, and they had bumped into Hua Xingzi. Even though Hua Xingzi said nothing, he was ambitious and proud, so he had an idea of what to do. It's the Void Phoenix clan and he's my friend, said Qing Feng icily. She didn't know how strong Lin Feng was, but she had heard that Hua Xingzi had used the 9 abstruse flames godly deployment spell to break through to the Tiandi layer. He was definitely terrifyingly strong. She hoped Lin Feng would not fight against him. I know. Therefore, I just want to use my vision technique on him. I don't want to injure your friend, said Hua Xingzi calmly. But could he injure Lin Feng even if he wanted to? You, Qing Feng looked at him icily. Hua Xingzi smiled. Miss Qing Feng, this time, I'll go back and I'll inform my teacher about the situation. Besides, we're looking for someone you can marry among my fellow disciples. We'll all be family members that way. You'll be like a sister-in-law to me. When Qing Feng heard that, she was astonished. She pulled a long face, and Hua Xingzi continued. I will choose an outstanding young man for you. You will be happy and feel honored to be with someone like that. People from the Fire Shrine are perfect matches for the people of the Void Phoenix clan. However, Lin Feng took a step forwards and grabbed Qing Feng's hand. Qing Feng shivered. She glanced at Lin Feng. Hua Xingzi was astonished and looked at Lin Feng icily. Interesting. He had thought that Lin Feng had come for Jing, and actually had come for Qing Feng? I'm sorry. Qing Feng is mine, Lin Feng said indifferently. The flames in Lin Feng's eyes became even more dazzling. Hua Xingzi frowned, then smiled. So let's see how strong you really are. I'm here, I didn't hide anything from you. Lin Feng smiled thinly. Empty space strength surrounded Qing Feng and Jing. Qing Feng was surprised. Jing grabbed her hand. Jing was stunned. If Lin Feng could defeat Hua Xingzi, it would be great. It would instantly and indubitably propel Lin Feng to a higher position within the Void Phoenix clan. Hua Xingzi's eyes were filled with terrifying flames. An ocean of flames appeared around him and Lin Feng. The atmosphere started burning. However, Lin Feng calmly stood there patiently. He was just looking at Hua Xingzi without moving. The fire roared and surrounded everything. The crowd retreated. That terrifying fire was scorching hot. It could burn them alive. Hua Xingzi was a cultivator of the Tiandi layer, after all. However, Lin Feng looked indifferent, as if nothing could affect him. Hua Xingzi grunted icily. He jumped forwards, a fire mace appearing and slamming down towards Lin Feng. However, he frowned as his fire slowed down, and a fireman appeared and moved closer to him. A gigantic hand grabbed his mace. What was going on? He's using his hands to grab Hua Xingzi's fire mace? Asked the crowd. Hua Xingzi's fire mace was terrifyingly powerful. Hua Xingzi wanted to take his mace back, but he couldn't move it at all. Crackling sounds rattled out, and his mace broke apart even as another fist moved towards his head. Hua Xingzi shouted frantically. He released millions of flames towards the fist, and the air exploded. At the same time he retreated, but the crowd realized that the fists were still moving towards him. Hua Xingzi's face slightly changed. He raised his fists, and a terrifying godly fire strength emerged. Lin Feng released empty space strength, dimensions shattering around his fist. "Break!" shouted Huixingzi, condensing godly fire strength into his fingers. 9 flames appeared around his hands and turned into indestructible godly fire strength. The empty space strength broke apart. Those watching shivered. Was that godly fire strength? How destructive! Lin Feng suddenly disappeared, and only empty space strength remained. Huixingzi suddenly turned around and lashed out with his fingers. A terrifying gigantic empty space hand grabbed him. "Piss off!" shouted Huixingzi furiously. He was stuck and staring at Lin Feng. He released more fire in waves towards Lin Feng. This guy's empty space strength was incredible. He didn't know that Lin Feng was only using pure empty space strength to fight against him. "Can you see my cultivation level now?" asked Lin Feng, destroying the fire Huixingzi used to attack him. He sounded totally unruffled. Huixingzi pulled a long face at his words. He was a genius from the fire shrine, but he lost this small battle miserably. How humiliating! Chapter 2278. Thoughts. Jing looked at Huixingzi and said pitilessly, "You're not that good. Do you think your fellow disciples are better than him? The fire shrine's disciples aren't necessarily talented." Huixingzi was speechless as he stared at Lin Feng. "You're really strong. I can't use my full strength though, because we're in the Void Phoenix clan. Let's go out to fight, what do you think?" "I don't have time," said Lin Feng in on a calm tone. He looked at Jing and Qing Feng. "Let's go." Huixingzi was agape. The fire in his eyes contained destructive strength ready to be unleashed. But he felt oppressed. He couldn't do much. This guy was really strong. He remembered what he had just thought. "Let's see if you're strong enough for Qing Feng." Regarding Qing Feng, I initially wanted to find someone because of my teacher's friend. If Jing left the clan, I wanted to help Qing Feng leave the clan. It doesn't have much to do with me though. But now, it seems I really need to help Qing Feng find someone, thought Huixingzi, smiling on the inside. But if he let her marry Lin Feng, wouldn't it be even more fun? Huixingzi didn't like it when there was no trouble. Now it was getting interesting. Lin Feng was extremely strong, and he didn't fear the shrines. He was probably hiding his real social status. Lin Feng didn't care about what Huixingzi thought. They headed to Qing Feng's mother's palace. The group of people entered her courtyard, where 2 people were sunbathing. "Father, you're here too," said Jing to the middle-aged man. It was her father. "Yes," the middle-aged man nodded. He looked at the 3 people, and in particular Lin Feng. He smiled and said, "Strange, your cultivation level seems confusing and chaotic, as if you were a cultivator of the top of the Huangqi layer. But your inner qi is too powerful for an emperor. What is your real cultivation level?" "Tiandi layer," replied Lin Feng with a polite smile. He was about as strong as a cultivator at the top of the Tiandi layer. Indeed, but his fighting abilities were better than that. "Celestial Emperor, your qi is indeed similar. But your concealment technique is incredible," said the middle-aged man calmly. He looked curious. Lin Feng wasn't using a concealment technique actually. He just had no cultivation level anymore. Other people couldn't understand, so his cultivation level was indistinct. "He's a guest. Why do you annoy him with his cultivation level?" said the beautiful woman next to the middle-aged man. She was extremely beautiful, and looked like a 30-year-old woman. She looked very alluring. She had delivered girls like Qing Feng and Jing. She was obviously really beautiful. Jing and her father's relations seem very harmonious, thought Lin Feng. "Right, please sit down," said the middle-aged man, gesturing at chairs. He sounded quite friendly, not like a domineering and brutal half-saint. He looked like an ordinary genial middle-aged man. Lin Feng and the 2 women sat down. The beautiful woman smiled and said to Qing Feng, "Did you come here to introduce that little boy to your mama? His name is Feng Ling. He's my friend," whispered Qing Feng. "Only a friend?" said the beautiful woman, smiling at Qing Feng. Her eyes were twinkling. She wanted to know what Qing Feng really thought. Qing Feng nodded. The woman laughed and looked at Lin Feng. "Good little boy. He's indeed not bad. He's young, He's not older than 100 years old, and he looks like a good cultivator. Feng Lin, which clan are you from? Asked the middle-aged man smiling. I have no clan. I practice cultivation in the countryside, replied Lin Feng. In the countryside? Haven't you joined any powerful group? Asked the middle-aged man. He was surprised. Lin Feng just nodded. That is rare. You should join the fire shrine. Are you interested? Asked the middle-aged man, smiling honestly and kindly. I practice empty space cultivation. I don't control fire strength. I don't want to annoy you, said Lin Feng, refusing politely. All right. I know some people in the empty space shrine, but if I just recommended you like that, they would have doubts, said the middle-aged man smiling and shaking his head. You've reached such a cultivation level practicing in the wild. If you joined a shrine, you'd have an incredible future. Thank you very much, master, said Lin Feng, nodding politely. You seem to be a good match for Qing Feng, but a short time ago, I talked to Hu Xingzi. My fellow disciple hopes to find an outstanding young man from the fire shrine for Qing Feng. Maybe he will find someone for her, said the middle-aged man naturally. He also glanced at the woman next to him. The woman frowned when she heard that. It meant a lot of different things. She knew what it meant. He didn't need to explain. Feng Lin was outstanding, but he wasn't a member of any group. It was much better to have a marriage alliance with a shrine. Of course, everybody came to that conclusion because of his tone of speech, but in the end he just nodded naturally, as if he hadn't said anything. It was one of his strengths. He wasn't Qing Feng's father, after all. He couldn't decide for her. His wife had to decide for Qing Feng. Even if getting married with someone from a shrine was better for Qing Feng, the woman looked at Qing Feng and smiled. Qing Feng, you came to see your mama. You probably want to talk to me. Actually, I came to see you, said Lin Feng. The woman turned to Lin Feng. Lin Feng continued. Master, I came to the Void Phoenix clan because of Qing Feng. The woman perfectly understood. He didn't need to say more. The woman smiled at Qing Feng. If Qing Feng agrees as a mother, I agree. If she's happy, I'm happy. Lin Feng admired her for that. She really loved her daughter. The woman had gone through a lot in life. She was extremely strong. She was in a big clan. And she had had many problems. Now she just hoped her daughter would be happy. She didn't care about the rest. And even though her husband had expressed his opinion, it didn't mean he could decide alone. Qing Feng was stunned. She raised her head and looked at her mother with a smile. Mother. The older woman smiled and nodded. Mom, we're not disturbing you any longer then, Jing smiled. Then three of them quickly left. The woman watched them go and smiled. The middle-aged man next to her sighed. Darling, even though I understand why you agree, the Void Phoenix clan might not agree. My daughter is not their toy, said the woman to the middle-aged man. She wasn't smiling anymore. The middle-aged man smiled wryly and shook his head. You know I don't mean that. I just want you to be happy. Jing doesn't like Hu Xingzi at all. You're the one organizing everything. But Qing Feng has nothing to do with you, so you don't need to care. Why? Jing is my daughter too. I want her to be happy. Hu Xingzi attaches importance to cultivation and victories, but he's very talented. In the future, he'll have an important position in a shrine. He's a good match for Jing. If you're not happy, you don't care about power and influence, said his wife, shaking her head. She stood up and left. The middle-aged man sighed. Ro, aren't you happy now? I did so much for you, why aren't you happy? The middle-aged man raised his head and looked after her. It was the first time he had doubts about his own choices. Chapter 2279. Understanding attacks. People's perspectives and opinions were different. Jing's father knew that the cultivation world was complex and cruel. Therefore, he hoped that Jing's husband would be extremely strong and would be able to protect her, so she would be able to do what she wanted. Jing's mother wanted her daughters to be in love with their husbands. She didn't like marriage alliances and such things. She found them immoral. She knew that a woman could be sad her entire life if she wasn't with the right man. So she hoped her daughters would love their husbands. Neither of them were wrong. However, Jing and Qing Feng were similar to their mother. Women and men thought differently. Lin Feng didn't leave. The 20-year period was almost over. If Shiju Laoxian came, he would tell him he needed to wait in the Void Phoenix clan. Lin Feng was in his spirit world, seated cross-legged. He was studying the earth and sky. He had a new idea. In the distance, a golden area appeared in the air. It looked like a dazzling cage. An ocean appeared and waves rolled. Lin Feng could now make all his ideas come to reality. Lin Feng opened his eyes and looked at what he had done. Back in purple clouds, he had dreamt for a long time. He had studied life. He had studied books he had borrowed in the fortune shrine. And he had observed people a lot. He had decided to call his cultivation level God level. It was because he controlled all sorts of strength. In his spirit world, he was like a supernatural being. He could do anything he wanted. However, he had just started at the God level. He was wondering what to do to improve on the path of cultivation. Lin Feng realized that he couldn't practice cultivation like ordinary people anymore. He didn't need to study ancient scriptures. He needed to understand life, to understand the world, to understand strength, and to understand himself. He was creating his cultivation, his own level. It was very important. He had to think carefully. Lin Feng stretched out his hand, and an incredible amount of cosmic energies condensed and turned into a strong empty space wind. Lin Feng released holy spirits, which entered the wind, then released ancient strength. He was like a god who could create anything. He waved his hand, and the empty space strength crackled. His heartbeat accelerated. His world could break. It wasn't indestructible. However, as he became stronger, so did his world. I'm not strong enough, mused Lin Feng. His strength was chaotic, and even though he was strong, he still needed to make his energies fuse together even better. He needed to focus. He needed to pay attention to the details. I have the control. The next step is creation. Those are parts of my God level, thought Lin Feng. Now maybe that it was time to create a special kind of strength, which would be perfect for his attacks. Sword attacks are powerful. Gold cosmic energies are sharp. Empty space energies make me faster. Wind is sharp and increases my speed. Holy Spirit swords can help me improve my sword attacks. Soundwave attacks can influence people's souls. If I add 9 netherworld strength in my holy spirits and cursing strength, my attacks are even more terrifying. With the 9 words of my incantation, then it's even better. With weapon chi, my attacks are even more explosive, he mumbled. Those kinds of strengths were perfect for attacks. He could make godly sword attacks with those strengths. It was important to pay attention to the nature of cosmic energies. A stronger and a weaker one, and you got average. If they were antagonist, then they were even less effective. Lin Feng closed his eyes and started using the powers of the celestial evolution holy scriptures. In his mind, everything changed every second. Everything was becoming better. Lin Feng snapped opened his eyes and his strength surged out. Terrifying lights streaked across the sky and destroyed the empty space strength. Lin Feng frowned and shook his head. Nah. As soon as the energies emerged from my body, they fused together perfectly, but there's still a problem. To carry out powerful attacks, he needed to attack quickly. He needed to condense as many types of strengths as quickly as possible. He needed the most explosive strength as possible. Therefore, Lin Feng closed his eyes, evolved his strength, opened his eyes again, attacked, and continued that repetitive process over and over again. He did that for 3 days. After 3 days, Lin Feng was facing sword lights, shining as if they would never disperse. They could destroy a cultivator of the Huang Qi layer within milliseconds. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. Finally he moved. He released an awe-inspiring strength. Dazzling golden lights streaked across the sky, and a gigantic sword trail appeared. The air shrieked, and sonic booms resonated for a while. That sword is a godly sword. I control it perfectly. It's powerful, it's a ruler's sword, whispered Lin Feng. It was the first sword attack he created. That kind of sword, at his cultivation level, was the best attack he could create. It was also better than any defense he could have created. He could slaughter enemies with such an attack. That's my ruler's sword attack. In the future, I can study other types of strength, and I can create pure yet explosive attacks. I won't just use pure attacks in the future. Maybe I'll be able to mix all sorts of strengths, such as oppression strength attacks based on the ancient holy techniques. I'll be able to oppress anyone like that. I'll also be able to add new types of strength to those attacks. The 20-year period was almost over. He needed some trump cards. Hua Xingzi was a celestial emperor, but he was already terrifyingly strong. The battle they had had was simple. Hua Xingzi hadn't used his full strength. Even though Hua Xingzi didn't pose a threat to Lin Feng at all, Lin Feng's ultimate goal couldn't be someone like Hua Xingzi. He would have to fight against people much, much stronger than Hua Xingzi in the future. If I use oppressive strength, I need to put demon strength in my attacks too. Demon strength is oppressive. Earth strength is heavy, but it's not oppressive enough, unless I add some death strength. Then I'll be able to kill my opponents quickly, he said to himself. Oppressive, aggressive, quick. Those were important qualities for attacks. With his death Dao that had reached the maximum level, the 9 words of his incantation, and cursing strength to attack people's souls, he would be able to crush his opponents quickly and violently. Lin Feng continued studying, staying focused. It was why he had become so strong. It was why he was talented. He focused. He concentrated. Many people were too distracted. He continued studying and thinking for a few days and nights, until he made his attack perfect. Lin Feng didn't know that Qing Feng and Jing were staring at him outside, their beautiful eyes twinkling. He's been staring at nothing for 7 days, whispered Jing, speechless. He hadn't come back to his senses yet. Yes. Qing Feng nodded, her eyes wide. That bastard, said Jing. She looked at Qing Feng and said, have you ever had sex? Qing Feng's eyes twinkled. We've never even talked that much. How could have anything happened between us? Bastard, said Jing coldly. She wanted to slap Lin Feng. When he wakes up, I'll slap him. Lin Feng came back to his senses and heard that. He whispered, are you sure you want to slap me? He opened his eyes and chuckled, smiling broadly, but Jing felt ice cold. She had almost forgotten that this guy was already too strong. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.